Here. Mr. Mercado's here.
I have confirmation that the other two guys are still coming. That's why that's going on. But will Commission and Public please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first item on the agenda is, actually the only item on the agenda is zone text change petition of 869 West Main Street Associates. Can we hear the call for that, please?
Yes, petition for a zone change on behalf of 869 West Main Associates LLC, the applicant, Andrea Gomes, Esquire agent. Applicant is requesting to change from a C3 to an R20 zoning district to the Affordable Housing District pursuant to Section 44A. Top 5 of the Cheshire zoning regulations for the 3 parcels located at 869 West Main Street, Assessors Map 49, Lot 301, Mountain Road, Assessors Map 49, Lot 72, and Mountain Road, Assessors Map 49, Lot 76.
Thank you, and representing the applicant tonight.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Nice to see you all again. For the record, my name is Andrea Gomes. I'm an attorney at Hinckley Allen in Hartford, here tonight on behalf of the applicant. Mr. Chairman, before I dive in, I just wanted to address what we're going to be doing with the screen. We obviously have slides. I know that we don't have the projector screen, so if it's okay
Let
with you,
everybody
Mr.
let everybody
Chairman.
see out there because we all have pretty much. I think it's going to be the same stuff that you have on there, right?
So the commission has hard copies of what we'll have on the screen. To the extent we need to point to something that's not readily, easily followed on the paper copy, we'll just turn the screen, point to the commission, and do the same for the public, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay. All right, so with me tonight are Mark Forlenza on behalf of the applicant, Ryan McAvoy, SLR, our consulting engineer, Jason Williams, I believe, will be here soon if he's not already. He's from SLR as well, our landscape architect. We have Seelan Pather and Brian Goddard of Binefield Architecture, Dave Sullivan, also of SLR, our traffic engineer, and Julia Fiore, also SLR, our economist and planner. A few procedural housekeeping items before I get into the substance of our application. The commission should have our application package, which was submitted on March 22nd. The commission should also have our supplemental materials, which were submitted on May 23rd and 24th. They included a revised plan set that made a couple revisions from the March version, which we'll go through during our presentation. Notice of the hearing was properly completed. We submitted proof of our May 9th mailing to abutters as required by the regulations to Mr. Glidden in advance of the hearing. A notice of the hearing was published twice in the newspaper. A thank you to Mr. Glidden and Ms. Costello for getting that done. And the rezoning materials were filed with the town clerk more than 10 days in advance of tonight's hearing as required by the applicable statutes. For tonight, we have a lot to go through. We've put together what we hope is a comprehensive presentation. So we'd respectfully request that the commission hold its questions until the end. We're hoping we get to most of them throughout the presentation.
Before we get started, I just quickly looking at stuff. I see a lot of stuff, and I heard you mention architecture. This is a zone text change, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I don't know how much of the project and the architecture and all that stuff we want to hear. I mean, there's a lot of people in this room tonight that are probably going to want to speak. So I don't want to go into the project, you know, you could probably better tell me. I mean, if it's a zone text change, how often do you bring in the project for a zone text change?
So it's an interesting position, Mr. Chairman. You're correct. It's a zone text change, and particularly this has been filed under 44A, the town's affordable housing development regulations. So the purview is even more narrow than your typical zone change application. What's a little bit different here is that the regulations allow for a one-step process for an affordable housing development, or a two, where you're doing the zone change alone or the zone change with the accompanying special permit. We've elected to do the two-step process, if you will, going first, obviously, for the zone change. So we did bring in some of the details of the design and the architecture so that the commission understands in evaluating the zone change petition what eventually will be built. But I hear—
Well, like I say, you know, some is great, but there are a lot of people here, and
Absolutely.
you know, this is not for the project. This is for a zone text change. So please bear in mind that these people might want to speak tonight. Let's not have it super long.
Nope, absolutely.
With that, I'll
So,
stop so you can get started.
My team can hear me, obviously, so we'll try and breeze through some of the architectural and site design details and keep it to what's relevant for the zone change petition while giving the commission a flavor, if you will, for what we're proposing. But understood, Mr. Chairman. So in terms of presenters, just to forecast for the commission what we're doing, I'll obviously be making the opening comments as I am now. Mark Forlenza will then be asked to speak for just a few moments on behalf of the applicant. You'll then hear from our team of consultants. Ryan McAvoy will touch on existing conditions, what's on site today. Jason Williams will talk about the overall design and context of the application of the site, including the landscaping. Seelan will then come up next to discuss the design of the building, abridged, as you said, Mr. Chairman, and Ryan will then come up and talk about the proposed application, or proposed plan. Dave Sullivan will follow Ryan to discuss the traffic, and then Julia will stand up and give a little bit of background on the fiscal impacts of the proposed plan for the town. And Mr. Chairman, as usual, I have closing comments, of course. I will have closing comments, but we may end up just delaying those till after public hearing. I'd suggest we see how it goes. So with that, I'll get right in. Mike, would you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So the applicant is under contract to purchase the subject property, which is designated here. This is at slide 2 with the red star, although the commission and the public will see in a few moments there's a better visual of the size and outline of this particular parcel. But it's comprised of 3 parcels and it totals about 10.8 acres. It's obviously located on the Mountain Road, West Main Street intersection and extends down towards Ives Road. It's currently unimproved and wooded, and it's located in the C3 and R20 zoning districts. About 4 acres of the site is comprised of wetlands. There are a variety of uses in the area, some of which you can see right on the aerial. You have the Shell Station to the west, Bellagio Restaurant to the east along West Main Street. The Quarry Village condos are located to the north, and the Hidden Pond condos and Marbridge Assisted Living and Memory Care Facility is located to the east-southeast, there on the lower right-hand corner of the screen. While the site is now unimproved, it is relevant for the commission to know that in 2003, the owner received subdivision approval for the construction of a mixed-use development that included a 7-unit adult community in approximately the middle of the site, and a 14,000 square foot commercial building pushed up to the Mountain Road and West Main Street intersection. Next slide, Mike. Just so that the commission sees that, this is, thank you. This is a street view of the property. This is pulled from Google. And then if you could go to the next slide, Mike. Thank you. And this is the slide that I was discussing earlier. We are at slide 4, just so the commission can follow along. You can see the outline of the site here in these white lines, and then the wetlands are outlined in blue, and the 100-foot upland review area is in yellow. Next slide, Mike. Thank you. So the applicant is proposing the construction of a multifamily community consisting of 74 units in one building. The 74 units include 3 studios at 715 square feet, 35 one-bedrooms at 645 square feet, and 36 two-bedrooms at 1,220 square feet. While the community was originally going to be called Piedmont Corner, which I think the commission can see on some of the earlier application materials, the applicant did decide to rename the community the Gateway, given the focus of given the focus on this site as the gateway into Cheshire, and we'll get into that in a little bit in a few minutes. We have filed, as I mentioned earlier, this application under zoning regulation 44A, which is Cheshire's Affordable Housing Development Regulation. The regulation requires that 25% of the units, here that'll be 19 units, are restricted for households making at or below 80% of the area median income or statewide median income, whichever is less. Our plan complies with that, and we are proposing the restriction of the units accordingly. Now, while the end goal of the applicant is ultimately to construct this community. As we discussed at the outset, Mr. Chairman, I just really want to hammer this home. The application before the commission tonight is just the first step in the development process. It's the zone change petition to rezone the site to the Affordable Housing District. Section 44A63 of the regulations provides that an applicant can pursue those approvals, whether in one steps or two steps as we decided, and we've decided to take it in pieces and start with the zone change petition. So this means that if the commission approves the zone change petition, we will return to the commission with an application for a special permit as required by the zoning regulations, at which time the commission will be evaluating things like site design, stormwater, traffic, et cetera, in more detail, as well as town staff. With that said, I do want to note that the plans before the commission tonight do reflect some preliminary staff comments that we received. The applicant team met with, I believe, a representative of every staff department in April. We presented the plan and we received some preliminary feedback and ultimately incorporated some of those suggestions into the plan. I understand from Mr. Glidden that we don't yet have any written comments from staff for tonight's hearing, but at that initial meeting in April, there were no initial concerns expressed by any of the staff members. But of course, we'll wait for those staff comments to come in. And of course, Mr. Chairman, with the special permit application will also come the regulated activities permit, or the wetland permit application, which we'll be seeking either at the same time or before. So, given this two-step process in the regulations that I discussed, I think it's important to touch here on the Commission's purview under Section 44A, because as I said, it is a little bit different than your typical zone change petition. It's clear to me, and probably anyone who does this on the day-to-day, that 44A was modeled after Connecticut General Statutes 830G, not only because of the affordability requirement, but because of the fairly narrow review standard that's written in the regulations. So 44A51 provides that the commission shall approve unless it finds that the denial is required to protect health and safety matters, which outweigh the need for affordable housing and cannot be addressed by reasonable changes to the plan. That's very similar, as the commission knows, to the 830G standard. And tonight you'll be hearing from each of our experts, and they'll be explaining in detail as to why this plan creates no health and safety issues. Indeed, the plan... Indeed, we believe that the plan is an overall improvement.
Everyone will get a chance to speak. Please, let's keep to ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Section 44A52 also provides that in evaluating the zone change petition, the commission should consider the consistency of the plan with the Plan of Conservation and Development, as well as the need for affordable housing in the town and region. Regarding the Plan of Conservation and Development, the POCD, we have a lot of information on the POCD in our application materials. I'll point the commission to tab 2, our cover letter, and the tab 7 planning memorandum in our March submission, which lays out the various ways that we are furthering goals of the POCD. I'm not going to go through all of those in detail tonight, but just highlighting a couple. We're increasing opportunities for affordable housing in the region, we're promoting a variety of housing types, and we're enhancing housing mobility and choice across income levels. And then, of course, the commission will see in our tab 2 letter, we quoted it, the POCD identifies this site as a potential area for residential development. Regarding affordable housing need in Cheshire, that's another portion of the Commission's consideration in evaluating this application. We submitted in March what we call the Affordable Housing Needs Memorandum, which the Commission has seen from me before, and it details essentially the need in Cheshire and the surrounding region. As of 2023, 3.52% of Cheshire's housing stock is affordable, and as the Commission knows, the goal ultimately is 10%, although that's many will say that the goal is even beyond that, but many believe the goal is 10%. And it's common knowledge at this point, all it takes is pulling up a news outlet or just Googling that there is a housing crisis nationwide and in Connecticut in particular. Rents are rising everywhere, and it's getting harder to find housing. And the Commission will find several of those articles in that memorandum we submitted with our application. Lastly, I'd be remiss if I didn't also highlight for the Commission that the plan is consistent with the town's affordable housing plan, which was drafted in 2022. That plan has a goal to, quote, increase the total number of affordable housing units within the community over the next 5 years. And our plan will help keep Cheshire on track to meet that goal. So with that introduction, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to hand it over to Mark Forlenza on behalf of the applicant.
Okay, not a question, right? Just a
Comment.
comment. One comment before.
Yeah, can you explain to the audience, you're coming here on affordable, you speak of 830G are affordable, but you come in with a real low percentage. Why are you not coming in, if you really want to help the people and we have housing issues, why don't you come with 100% affordable? And can you explain the reason why you don't do that? Thank you.
I'll say it's two general reasons, and then certainly Mark can weigh in as well. Number one, Commissioner, the regulation provides that the applicant can come in under 44A by providing 25% of the units at 80%. And that is what the applicant has underwritten this community for, and that's what we're coming under. Just same, we've had this discussion before on the 830G side. It's what the statute in that case, and in this case the regulation allows, and that's what the applicant's pursuing. You're also going to hear from Mark and I think a couple other members of
But the question is, why not 100%? I mean, it's needed. Everybody says it's needed. You tell me Cheshire needs it. We want it. It has to come here. There's 10%. Please explain why it's not 100%, which might be a little, more palatable.
Mark can weigh in.
Good evening, Commissioner. My name is Mark Forlenza, and I am the applicant of this proposal you'll hear tonight. And thank you all for being here. The provision of affordable housing is a very difficult thing in the state right now. So whether it was 830G or your regulations, what you've done is you've tried to incentive a developer through density bonuses. So if you build a certain number of units, and you've established that based upon the number of units per acre, you have to provide sort of set-aside housing to build affordable housing. That extra density on the parcels makes the affordable housing, able to be built in addition to the market rate housing. If a community was to be built with 100% affordable, it would need tax abatements, subsidies, low-income housing tax credits. There's a number of vehicles that you can utilize to provide for affordable housing. And some people do complete affordable housing developments. Most developers in the state do not, and I'm not one of them. But it's not the only mechanism. 100% affordable is not the only mechanism to provide affordable housing, but this is another tool that towns and the states have in their toolbox to try to generate more affordable housing in the state. And again, we won't be looking for any public subsidy, any federal subsidy, any state subsidy, any local subsidy to provide this affordable housing. So I think that's why you all put that regulation in effect as opposed to something else. So now I'll just kind of introduce myself to you guys. And my name is Mark Forlenza. I am the applicant here. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for everyone coming. We're pleased to show you this development. We think it'll be a great asset to Cheshire and to Gateway. I probably have the smallest part of the presentation tonight. The only thing that I will be doing is sort of introducing myself as the developer on the site, and then introducing my partner, John Milone, who is no longer here. He had another meeting. And then briefly, he's here. And then John Milone, who actually didn't leave for the meeting left. And then just give a brief description of our vision for the community and what we believe this community will do for the town of Cheshire. For those of you who don't remember me, I've been before this commission a number of times in the past on several smaller developments. But my experience as a multifamily development probably lasts 35 years. I was trained initially as a city and regional planner. I received my master's degree down in North Carolina. I spent 35 years building multifamily housing across Connecticut, mainly across Connecticut, probably developed and built over 6,000 apartment homes in the Connecticut, New York, Massachusetts, New Jersey, and just recently in Florida. A lot of these luxury apartments that I have built also come with affordable set-asides. Some using 830G, often not, because in the later part of this this decade, towns themselves have been including as part of their zoning regulations inclusionary housing, like you have done. I have probably been involved in some of the finest communities over Connecticut, in Darien, Wilton, New Canaan, in Lower Fairfield, in Upper New Haven, North Haven, Hamden, Milford, Shelton, and also several projects in the Hartford area. But the two that I kind of point to are the two that I've developed and built here in Cheshire, both on Highland Avenue and South Main Street. We put a regulation in place for these small developments along Main Street and Highland Avenue, and the one is being constructed right now. So you could see, the quality of the construction that we have done over the last 5 years in Cheshire, and I believe that the town is happy with those, and I know the residents here who are actually renting there are. And just as an aside, probably 50% of the tenants in those two smaller ones either have previously lived in Cheshire or have wanted to move back to Cheshire after they got their degree. So there is a need for this for the folks in Cheshire, and additionally for people in the surrounding areas. My partner on this development, I'm sure you remember him, is John Milone, and most of you probably know him. John has lived in this community for 35 years. He has raised 3 children in this community. He also built a substantial business, Milone and McBroom, that is now SLR, and you can see some of his folks here representing us, who has over 200 employees, as part of his corporation. John has been involved in some of the more significant developments here in Cheshire, the initial portion of the Linear Park, and then the North Gate over at the north end. So he's an asset to this community, and he's certainly an asset to the team that we brought together to present this proposal to you. John and I have known each other professionally and personally for approximately 35 years. And I would say, out of all the apartments that we have built in Connecticut, SLR or Milone and McBroom has been the engineering and the consultants on probably 95% of them. We have collaborated, like I said, on some of the finest communities in Connecticut, and we really both have the same objective here. We'd like to build Gateway as sort of the entrance into Cheshire, and you'll hear more about this from both Sealand and Cheshire, and to create a community here in Cheshire that will provide some value and we can all be proud of. I usually go into more, but I'll stop here since I believe a lot of this will be covered by some of the other consultants. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Paul.
I just want the applicant to stand corrected. This is the finest community in the state of Connecticut, okay? I don't care where you've built.
Mr. Natale, also. They did ask for questions to be.
Yeah, I
till the end,
just
so.
want for clarity, so it's not, I guess it's a question because I'm going to ask, but either for Attorney Gomes or for staff, I know that there's a lot of rumblings. People don't understand the difference between low income, Section 8, affordable. So, Michael, I don't know if that's you or Attorney Gomes that can explain that for everybody in the room so they know what affordable is versus what they may be thinking.
Do you want to start?
I'll take a crack at it, if I may, through you, Mr. Chairman. So in this instance, affordable, as required by the regulation, means that 25% of the apartments will be rent restricted, meaning they will be reserved for households making at or below 80% of the area or state median income, whichever is less. It is not Section 8, that's a different program. And we could spend this entire evening just talking about different affordable housing developments and different subsidies and things that are available out there. But in this instance, it is simply for those households, and I say households because it's not necessarily one, depending on the size of the unit, those households that are at or below 80% of the area or statewide median income. And just, if I may, Mr. Chairman, through you, the income here, and it will vary, the calculation varies based on the size of the unit. We're talking households that make, for a studio, $65,000, roughly. For a one-bedroom, $70,000, and for a two-bedroom, $84,000. So those are the income limits to qualify for these affordable units.
And with that, along with that, approximately, what would the lowest rents be?
The lowest rents? Mark would like to weigh in.
Yeah, so the rents themselves sort of are adjusted on family size, but then are adjusted based on bedroom. So the studios, and when we put this program together, there's sort of a continuum of rents that you'll see across both the affordable and market rate. So the studios will start at approximately $1,400. The one bedrooms will be approximately $1,500, and the two bedrooms will be approximately $1,850. At that point, the market rate apartments then sort of pick up. They will then range from $2,000 a month all the way up to $4,500 a month, depending upon the apartment. So there's a continuum of, affordable housing or moderate housing, all the way up to really luxury housing.
All right, Mr. Bowman, I do want to remind the commission, though, we were asked to do questions at the end, but go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Okay.
There's a lot of people out there that want to speak. I
know there's
don't
a
want
lot
to
of
make this,
people.
okay.
I just want to know, for the affordable section of this, how long, this is a deeded restriction, correct? How long is the deeded restriction last?
40 years.
40 years. So after 40 years, it goes away, and everything goes to market rate. Just want to clarify. Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Ryan McAvoy. I'm a licensed professional engineer registered in the state of Connecticut with SLR. I've been practicing for 22 years and licensed for 16 years. Next slide, please. So what I'm going to do is just briefly describe the existing conditions of the property, refer with a little bit more detail to what was previously approved on this site, and then turn it over to others in the team. So this property, I'm going to refer to it as the property, although technically it consists of 3 parcels today. This property in total is 10.75 acres in size, and this aerial graphic that you have in front of you represents roughly the current condition of the property. Now, north in this particular case is facing to the left. So the Mountain Road intersection with West Main Street is in the lower left portion of the screen, again, north facing to the left. Quarry Village Road across the intersection to the left. West Main Street going into the center of town continues up and to the east. Mountain Road, of course, to the south. And then West Main further Route 6870 split. And the gas station just on the bottom of the screen here. So this property is right now a split zone between the C3 and the R20 zone. And it is vacant essentially today, although historically at the intersection of West Main and Mountain Road, there used to be a small commercial business fronting on West Main Street with a relatively small parking area. The balance of the property to the south is wooded and forested. The adjacent land uses, again, just going to reiterate what Attorney Gomes mentioned, are Bellagio restaurant located to the east, the gas station across Mountain Road to the west, single-family residential homes along Mountain Road, along the east side of Mountain Road, and the opposite side of Mountain Road there really aren't. Quarry Village condominiums to the north, other single-family residential homes across on the opposite side of West Main Street, and then on the very back end of the property you have single-family residential along Ives Row and the back edge of the Hidden Woods condominium, although the units themselves are far to the east. So the site generally is sort of a two-tiered topographically, with the areas along the intersection relatively flat at elevations as high as 194 at the intersection, then descending to the south, where there is a more abrupt grade change going down to a wetland corridor that occupies a large portion of the south and southeast corner of the property. So the wetlands are down at 156, 157 range, with the upper portion of the site in the 190-ish range. In terms of availability of utilities on this site, we do have public water along Mountain Road and West Main Street. We do have sewer located at the intersection of West Main Street and Mountain Road. And with respect to the application that we're presenting this evening, we do have to review this site with respect to Section 44A of your regulations for the eligibility to determine if this site is, meets the eligibility standards. So the first, as I mentioned before, it's in the R20 and C3 zone. Both of those zones allow for the Affordable Housing District, Section 44A. The eligibility requires that you front on Route 70 or within 500 feet of Route 70. Our site obviously fronts along Route 70. Public water and sewer have to be available. And as I mentioned before, public water is available. We do have letters in the file from Regional Water Authority confirming that public water is available. We also had flow tests demonstrating that there's up to 6,000 gallons per minute of water available on the site. And also that the site is above 5 acres in size and below 25 acres in size. So at 10.75 acres, we're right in that zone of eligibility. And then there's a formula for determining the maximum number of units allowed, and that takes into account property area, wetlands, steep slopes, water bodies, things of that nature. And based on the characteristics of this site and based on the Section 44A of the regulations, up to 83 residential units are allowed per the zoning regulations. Next slide, please. So this plan in front of you is just for historical purposes, the previous approval that was done on this property back in 2002, 2003. And this site at the time was approved, and I believe those approvals are lapsed, but that's at the time included a 14,000 square foot commercial building, roughly at the intersection of West Main and Mountain Road, with parking surrounding the building, one single family residential house on Mountain Road, and 7 active adult units to the rear of the single family homes on Mountain Road. This plan received approval in 2002, 2003 from Planning and Zoning, Wetlands, and WPCA. And one element of this site plan that I think is a little bit different than what we're proposing is that this essentially developed every single portion of the site, of the upland portions of the property, with clearing, grading, drainage units, et cetera, almost right up to the wetland boundary itself. And that is not something we're looking to do as part of this project. But just for past approvals that were granted on this property, we just wanted to give the commission and the public a little bit of insight as to what's been previously shown on this. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Jason Williams to just discuss the vision for this project.
Thank you, Ryan. Good evening, Mr. Chair, commission members. My name is Jason Williams. I'm a principal landscape architect with SLR Consulting. Ryan mentioned the entire site, and so just want to briefly go through the components of the site. Next slide, which is actually pretty simple. But you keep hearing members of the team talk about this gateway. If you are a visitor to Cheshire and you are coming west from 84, you get to the top of the hill and enter the notch. And this really begins your experience of Cheshire as a visitor, even coming down from Prospect if you've got off of 84. And so you can see our project on the west or the page bottom as this gateway and the importance that we feel as a gateway before entering east on West Main Street, entering the West Main Street district, and then on to Main Street at the top of the hill and points east. When we start a project like this, we try to put together a vision, and so this is a precedent image of what we are looking to create on the site. And we've created these communities in the past. These are some examples of the amenity spaces that we've created. As part of this project, we're really looking to create a community so that tenants feel really a sense of place, not only within their apartment, but also within Cheshire. And so, as I mentioned, the site plan is very simple. 74-unit residential building pulled as close as possible to West Main Street and Mountain Road. 148 parking spaces to the east and the south with a small roundabout. There's 2 entrances to the site, one on West Main Street, which has a right out only, and a right and a left in, as well as along Mountain Road, where we have an island with ingress and egress coming out of the site. In the southwest, east of the property, we have our stormwater management basin. And then really picking up those features for the tenants. A sunken amenity space here, which we will show you. The main entrance to the building with seating walls, an outdoor pool, and cushioned seating area, cabanas. And then our trailhead, an open-air pavilion, which leads to a trail that enters the south of the property. The entire property is heavily landscaped with evergreen screening on the east side, street trees along Mountain Road, native shrubs, native perennials. I'm going to go through a couple of these perspective images, just focusing on the landscape. So as I mentioned, the gateway on the corner of Mountain Road and West Main Street, we'd be looking to create a really beautiful entry feature here, plaza benches, and a real stately gateway structure entering as you're moving east onto West Main Street. Street trees, stone wall, heavy abundance of flowering shrubs. Next slide. And this shows just what that gateway could look like. New England vernacular with a small sign that essentially telling visitors welcome to Cheshire. This lower sunken garden I had mentioned between the building and Mountain Road could look like this, with features for tenants to come out and relax, really engage with each other, and meet new people. Next slide. The view looking north of the main entrance to the building with seating walls, heavy landscaping, our outdoor pool amenity space, and hornbeam screening along the east side there. A real activated space for the tenants. And our trailhead feature, open-air pavilion, string lights, serviceberry trees, all native plantings for pollinators that really also become a meeting spot for people to then move along the trail. Next slide. I'm going to turn it over to Seelan Pathar, our architect. Come back.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Seelan Pathar. I'm a principal at Byfield Architecture. Understood, Mr. Chairman, on going quick, so I will go quick. I think it was important for our team to communicate the quality of design and the quality of product we hope to produce, and hopefully that was thoughtfully, the process was thoughtful in creating the architecture and the plan. A little bit about us. Byfield Architecture is a design-driven practice based in Norwalk, Connecticut, founded about 40 years ago by Bruce Byfield. I've been part of that practice for the last 19 years or so. Our approach to design is similar regardless of building type. We always try to create something that's interesting, engaging, and hopefully something that captures the imagination of people going by, of people who live there, and also hopefully something that captures the spirit of the place we're building in your town at this time. I mentioned that because that approach is especially true of how we proceeded here. What is evident when you drive around this town is a rich New England vernacular, whether it's the gable ends, the porches, and the detailing of the houses just down the road on West Main, or even the New England factory aesthetic at Ball and Socket. The town has great architectural precedent. So we leaned into that. The concept you see here, some of the important design goals for us were addressing the corner of West Main and Mountain Road. To place the building on the corner, it's an important urban planning concept. Creating architectural vernacular that resonates with the architecture of the town. You see the gable end as the primary pattern across the building. You see the porches on West Main and on Mountain Road. The image also hints at the more traditional approach of architecture, like with elements like windows and side walls and fencing with the traditional detailing that we will pay attention to. Finally and importantly, we wanted this to look like a 3-story structure. So the first level is buried in this image about 10 foot below that intersection. The idea is hopefully that first level feels like a walkout basement from a high-end home. And there's associated landscaping that goes with that. So with that concept, we leaned in. And this shows executed projects from our portfolio with a similar architectural style. And you can see with the right attention to detail, the right attention to design, you can create something special. It's just more of the same. What this shows, though, that the architectural approach is the same, whether it's a pared-down version of New England vernacular or more embellished version of the New England vernacular here. You see the contrast between those two. This is a site, again, went over this, but just the important bit here was, again, that entrance into Cheshire. And the idea that we are not developing the entire site, just where the massing belongs in this corner. This part of the site gives an opportunity for placemaking with that walk and loop that we were speaking about. I'll go through these quickly. I don't think we should this is the first floor plan. The important bit about this is that if you're a resident, you can actually walk into the main entrance. We try and push people through the amenities so that they experience the place as a community, but there's also direct entry. So it feels very much like a home. We can skip to the next two slides. The only reason I bring this up is the roof plan is because we've done this a few times. We know how to deliver this product. This shows that there's a pocket behind the sloped roofs where all your mechanical equipment will be hidden. So you won't even see it. We've done it before and it's worked before. So this is a view from the corner of Mountain Road and West Main. Again, the same elements we were speaking about. I'd like to revisit the idea of placemaking here. Sorry, maybe we can stay on this, is fine.
Can you turn that mic back to you again so everybody can hear you? Thank you.
Sorry about that. I'd like to revisit the idea of placemaking here. When we started a multifamily project, we asked two primary questions. How do we create a sense of place, and how do we create a sense of community? Our experience shows us that when a resident feels connected to a place and to a building, that they tend to live here longer. That's important to build a place. The next few slides show that opportunity for placemaking. Besides the attractive idea of living in Cheshire, obviously, the idea is that good architecture and good design will bring people to a place that they can call home. So this image shows how the building addresses that corner, how it is set about, the first floor is set about 10 foot below that corner of Mountain Road and West Main. And it does feel, if you allow me, like a 3-story building with a porch at the front. This shows the entrance to the building. There's about 6,000 square foot of amenity behind that glass entrance. That's large for a project this size, and it also shows a pool amenity. We usually reserve a pool amenity for larger projects than this, but the developer felt it was really important to create a project that was distinguished from the others in town. You've seen this before, and it adds the idea of a walkout basement being a really special experience for the residents here and a beautiful courtyard amenity. This site section is important because it shows how low that first floor is compared to the road alongside it, in this case, Mountain Road. And hopefully, if we get this right, it will feel like 3 stories from the road. And then finally, I just want to end with the idea of community. I spoke about placemaking. With community, you can create a community 2 ways. Physically, you can have this building connect with sidewalks into the community. You can provide home offices inside your amenities. But you can also program the spaces, non-physical things. You could have, for example, pizza nights on Friday and football viewing days on Sunday. And with that programming, what you do is create a place where people do feel like, and this is a common theme, feel like they're home. And that's what we want to do here. And the last 2 images show that we've done it before. The idea here is to create a unique product, a highly amenitized building. We know how to do it, and these images show some of the amenities that have been successful for us in the past. Thank you.
Hello again, Ryan McAvoy for the record, licensed professional engineer. I'm just going to really run through this quickly. But again, as part of your regulations, section 44 A.4.2 require that we prepare a conceptual site plan along with conceptual architecture, et cetera, for the zone change petition. And as part of this plan, we have developed what we call a preliminary site plan, where we show how this site could be developed in accordance with your regulations. And Jason Williams previously went through this a little bit, so I'm not gonna go over that. But again, the intent with this development is to focus the parking, the building, all site improvements, et cetera, towards the intersection of Mountain Road, West Main Street, with essentially no activity whatsoever behind the residential units, residential lots on Mountain Road. So this is taking advantage of the availability of the regulations in terms of density allowed, but we're trying to keep this to the extent possible up near the intersection to leave the remainder of the property undeveloped. Next slide, please. Again, as part of this, not really in detail, but as a preliminary nature, we show how this site could be graded and how it could be served by utilities and how stormwater could be treated on the property. And what essentially we provided in the plan set that you've seen is a grading plan showing how access could be provided along West Main Street and along Mountain Road, with grades descending into the site to the east or to the right and to the up from Mountain Road, in a manner that's consistent with your regulations in terms of number of parking spaces, in terms of grade of parking spaces. And we do have a provision for a sort of reserve parking area, although we're building it as part of this project, terminating in the cul-de-sac or turnaround along Mountain Road itself. As I mentioned before, the site will be served and has been confirmed by Regional Water Authority to have public water available. We do have feasibility approval from the WPCA for back in October. We had originally shown 77 units for that approval. We're down to 74 now. But we do have feasibility approval from WPCA, so we do meet that eligibility standard as well. And with regard to stormwater management, we're proposing a stormwater basin, surface stormwater basin, in an area consistent with what was previously approved, some decades ago on this site. It's an appropriate location for a surface stormwater basin. We will also need some underground stormwater chambers on the site and parking areas. But the intent of our stormwater analysis in a preliminary nature that we've shown is that the site can comply with applicable regulations in the town of Cheshire, the 2024 DEEP Water Quality Manual, in terms of providing water quality renovation from the site. And we've also limited the nature of the activity in and around wetlands on the property, in part by limiting how far the development opportunity to the south on this plan. So again, our site is conceptual in nature, although it's my professional opinion that this site can be developed in a manner consistent with your regulations without any impacts for safety or impacts to abutting properties with respect to stormwater runoff, with respect to light pollution, with respect to all the elements that are important on a more complete, more site plan package.
Just touch on the comment, the revisions we made.
Yeah, and we did submit some revised plans just to, based on some discussions with staff, namely that we do have these in and out entrance exit areas along Mountain Road with islands internally to separate entrance and exit lanes. Those islands were requested to be mountable by the fire department so that if they have to come in quickly, they're not looking to slow up when they enter the property. We also included a sidewalk extension along West Main Street to the first driveway curb cut at the Bellagio site, again with the intent of trying to provide a little bit more connectivity from this site to other walking paths, sidewalks throughout the West Main Street corridor. And we also provided a little pull-off area for emergency vehicles located near the front entrance. Lastly, we did provide additional landscaping along the edge of the parking turnaround nearest to residential property on Mountain Road. And of course, we did provide the fire flow data that's available in Mountain Road, demonstrating again that there's thousands of gallons of permitted of water available to serve for emergency services on
Ryan,
this
could I just
property.
get a quick question? On that map, could you show me where the C3 line is?
It is, I'm going to turn this to you, Sean, just so you can see.
Yep.
So this is approximate, but it comes roughly in this location and cuts diagonally across the property, like this.
So the whole building is in the C3 zone.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Now Dave Sullivan for traffic. Oh, of course.
Thank you again. My name is David Sullivan. I'm a senior principal with SLR, professional engineer, and I manage the transportation planning group of SLR. I'd like to go through some of the key findings in our traffic study. A traffic study typically, in general terms, we're looking at what the existing conditions are. Then we're working with the site planners, working through access and safety, so that when the site plan is presented to you, it's gone through some of those machinations. Then we get into what's the traditional impact study, so we project future conditions. We do a series of analyses with and without the additional traffic from whatever the development is, in this case the 74-unit development. And we determine if there's a difference in those operating characteristics. And essentially, that's what is considered an impact. If we've identified impacts, then we come up with recommendations to mitigate those impacts, and in a perfect world, make things better than they are today. So the first slide that we have up there is our sightline and access slide. And I bring this up because this kind of demonstrates some of the stuff we do before we get into the details of the traffic impact study. So you'll see over there what our goal is. Our goal is really to do no harm to the area from a traffic standpoint. What do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is we do not want to impact operations. So what you have is, as a very minimum, is what you'll get. And probably more importantly, we don't want to create or exacerbate any safety conditions. So we don't want to bring something into the transportation system that's bad for either motorists, public, or pedestrians or bicyclists or anybody in the environment. In this particular case, I'll talk about the access first, I guess. You know, we understand, and everyone in this room understands, that this intersection has a lot of traffic and some operational characteristics that are poor, particularly as you're coming westbound and to a lesser degree northbound on Mountain Road. We obviously are aware of that, and so when we start determining what the access should be, we keep that in mind. And in this case, what we're trying to do is minimize the amount of vehicles that actually will go through this intersection. So to do that, this driveway on West Main Street has been restricted. So you're allowed to take a left turn in or a right turn in, but you're not allowed to take a left turn out. And that left turn out would have to fight the queues here in the afternoon, and also would be adding to the traffic that's coming through that intersection. The left turn in, we decided, makes more sense to keep. There was some thought of restricting the left turn in, but when we reviewed operations out here, this left turn lane is what we call starved. So the usage of that left turn lane is very light, and we have a very long painted left turn lane. So there is a left turn lane and a through lane.
One coming down and one going the other way.
What?
Small,
Two lanes in one, that one side.
yeah.
This is Mountain Road.
Yep, you take the right, and then right before Bellagio there, there's
Correct.
2 lanes, and then it's.
Oh, coming through in the opposite direction.
So that in and out is at the 2 lanes.
It is, yes, yes it is.
So how are you gonna come over a left from the other side and cross the
Oh, you take left turns across 2 lanes quite often. That is not,
All right, come on, please, everybody, let's just keep order here. I know everyone's tension's high, but let's keep order, please.
and again, this is not a situation where we're suggesting something that is not very common, and there's certain things we look at to make sure that this could be done safely. This is an out to the right and an in to the right and to the left. Okay? And you have a left turn lane. So this left turn lane you have now at the signal, it will function very similar to that, except this will have significantly less traffic. But it will not be much different than the one at the signal, and will operate even better. Nonetheless, the restriction here is to minimize traffic through this intersection. This will be a full access driveway. We have an island there for a couple of reasons. One, the aesthetics of it, but it also allows us to maximize sightlines for exiting vehicles, and also gives us the ability, which I'll describe in a little further in the presentation, a bypass area for people that you have 2 choices if you're coming eastbound. You could enter the site this way, or you could take a right turn and enter the site that way. So those taking the turn this way, we are doing some widening on this side so that we allow enough width there, so as somebody is taking that left turn, it will not impede traffic that's going south on Mountain Road. The other thing in here is the sightlines.
Go for it.
And the sightlines were based on traffic counts that we did, automatic traffic recorder counts, which give us the speed of vehicles that are passing these points. On West Main Street, we need to be able to look left because we have no left turns out, so we don't need to look right. And the speeds coming eastbound require sight distance of 470 feet, which is achievable. At the driveway on Mountain Road, the speeds were required a sight line of 395 feet looking left, which is achievable. And to the right, you can see to the intersection, speeds are much slower because those vehicles are coming from a turning maneuver. So that sight line is more than adequate for that particular speed. So these are some of the regular findings for the traffic impact study. The multifamily mid-rise 74 units using Institute of Transportation Engineers would generate a total of 27 morning peak hour trips, and in the afternoon, 29 peak hour trips. On the bottom, I put a note there. The previous approval here, although just for
Mr. Chairman,
context.
I hate to interrupt, but I'm really tired of hearing about the previous approval, because the previous approval was 20 years ago. And if you're gonna tell me the traffic count was the same 20 years ago as it is today, I'm gonna tell you go back to school. Therefore, forget what it was 20 years ago. If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Glidden, that approval has since
It's gone.
gone.
It's gone. It
So,
wasn't 20 years ago,
please,
but
I
it
don't
was a
wanna
while
hear it.
ago.
I've
Yes.
heard it a few times from and it's in this package. Forget it, it doesn't exist.
Okay, certainly. So let me jump then to the findings. And the only thing I'll say about that is we did not account for that anywhere in the study, the prior approval. This is just an anecdotal point. So I'll skip it, but it has nothing to do with the analysis we did, okay? So our findings were that no safety concerns will be created or exacerbated. The levels of service, there would be no change to any of the levels of service or operating characteristics. And again, part of that is because we have such a low generation of traffic. As I point out up top there, we're talking about 27 trips, but those trips are going south, east, west. They're coming in, they're coming out, so they're getting dispersed. So we don't have a significant amount of traffic on any one of these cardinal directions in the analysis. So it's not surprising at an intersection that has approaches with 800 and 900 vehicles that the operations would not change. They would not be perceivably different. And the other part of this is the way we design the site, we're really minimizing the amount of trips that have to go through this intersection because we realize that this intersection has some operational concerns. So we're minimizing a small amount of traffic, and essentially the only vehicles that will go through this site, through this intersection to this site, would be if you're coming eastbound, you'll either take a right or go through to get in those driveways, and the only vehicles that would, from the exiting traffic, would be those coming out Mountain Road, taking a right and wishing to take a left to go west. So again, out of the small amount of trips, because of our restrictions and because of just the general ability to distribute and disperse the traffic, there's no change in the operating conditions. The driveways themselves, on Mountain Road, there may be some disruption from the queues on Mountain Road. For when there is not the queuing disruption, which again happens at the end of the cycles, the operating characteristics are generally good. Because of the restriction we put in place for the left turns, the driveway on West Main Street will also operate quite well from a level of service standpoint. So our next step here was to look into what could be done. You know, many times when I've been before you, we've been able to make some revisions to the traffic signals, revise some timing. Sometimes we can add a phase or add a protected left turn. This signal is quite inefficient for one main reason. Both the signal on Prospect and the signal on Mountain Road are actually functionally one traffic light, which means we don't have the flexibility we would have if these were further spread apart and were two different signals. So any changes we would make here would have to be reflected in the phasing and the timing there because they're tied. So there's one brain that's telling these cars how to go. So we tried to think out of the box a little bit and see if there were things that we could do to make some improvements. And one thing that we identified is you'll see the big white left through arrow there. It occurred to us that, geez, this lane is very underutilized, and maybe we could use this lane to get additional westbound traffic through the intersection, which would mean if we're letting 2 lanes of traffic, we have to accept 2 lanes of traffic. So this would be a through left, so you would take your left from the inside lane, and this would be a through right. So you would take your right turn and through. But what that does right now, vehicles that are oriented eventually to take this left and this through, which in the afternoon peak hour are, you know, a few hundred cars in each one of those lanes, they're trying to get filtered in one lane through this part of the signal. Now, operationally, it's not going to be a panacea where all of a sudden everything is perfect, but it does give us the ability to improve some things. In particular, improving the queues in the westbound direction, and it allows us to use a little bit of the time that is required for that to some of the other approaches to make some modest improvements to those approaches. Now, I point out that this would have to be approved by DOT. We've got to have to go through an encroachment permit, and in the report, we point out that the DOT's preferred method of back-to-back left turn lanes is not to open it up to 2 lanes and then have them jockeying in this section if a through trip has to go there or if a left turner has to go there. But it's not unprecedented. It exists in Connecticut. It exists in a couple of places in my hometown on Route 1 in Brantford. So I think we have a shot at this. We're going to pursue this with DOT. The developer, Mark, has agreed to implement it if we get the green light from DOT, and it's a significant improvement over existing conditions, even though the existing conditions will not be affected. So to wrap this up, our recommendations are, number one, the sight lines. We're going to provide the sight lines, but we got to make sure that nothing blocks them, nothing ends up growing there. They have to be maintained because, again, safety is our primary charge here. We need to widen Mountain Road so we can do that bypass I described. So we need to widen on the site side. So those 2 lanes will move over a little bit so that if you're taking a left turn off of Mountain Road into this site, there's enough room for cars to bypass. So somebody going south on Mountain Road will not have any change in their operating conditions. And lastly, we will engage DOT through the encroachment permit process and see if we can get this recommendation implemented.
I'm going to let a couple of questions come in here to the traffic, if you don't mind. Some people have some interest in this, so we're going to go, Mr. Kaderis.
What is the current level of service at that intersection?
Interestingly, it's level service D. There are approaches, however, that are E's and F's. In particular, at Mountain Road, in the afternoon, it's an F as you're coming westbound. I believe it's E. I could look up and give you the specifics. Why don't I do that? Oh, thank you. So we have F on the northbound in the afternoon, E in the morning. Over on Prospect Road, the westbound left is an F. I think those are the ones I would point out that are worse than D, those 3 maneuvers.
And when you were forecasting the trip generation from the site, did you consider the demographics of the residents there?
We did. What we used was the Cheshire-based Journey to Work data, which tells us that people that live in Cheshire today, what towns they work in. So we get, it's not telling us who's going to live here where they work, but it tells us in general these are the desire lines. As you would expect, there's a large number that are Cheshire. There's a fair amount that are New Haven, and surrounding towns have their fair shares, but that's how we determine the orientation. Now, I will point out that when there was a question, as we're going through this, we took the most conservative approach. So, for example, we did put, I believe, 20 or 25% coming northbound on Mountain Road. In some cases, the path of least resistance, because of the congestion on West Main Street, may be to find other ways to get to Mountain Road. So, there's a number of them. If you're coming northbound on Route 10, I mean, you can go as far south as Mount Sanford Road to wind your way over to Mountain Road. You can come up Higgins. You can come up Cornwell. So there's ways to do that. And if you're already on West Main Street, Ives Row is another option. But again, we thought from a impact standpoint, we should put them on the route that is the most direct regardless of traffic, but we think there'll be a sprinkling. Again, we're talking about very low numbers here. Again, to put it in perspective, when I say 27 trips, you know, in the morning, in the morning, 21 are leaving, so that's our high number in the morning, and that 21 are going in, again, in all the 4 cardinal directions. And the peak in the afternoon is 18 arriving, and so those 18, when you start.
If we could keep it just down for a little bit longer, you guys are gonna get a turn in a sec, just.
So when you take the 18 and you take 25% here and 25% here, 5% there, we're talking about numbers that are 5, 10 vehicles max in some of these directions. So rather than putting 2 here, 1 here, we said let's put all 7 here on this approach and all 5 on this approach, so we didn't dilute the impact as it approached the site. But the beginning of the question, we used Journey to Work data from the census to make our assignments.
Okay. I have a few questions for you along those lines. So you're saying right now it's at a level of E or F. You're talking.
Some approaches are.
Okay.
There's
And you're
approaches,
talking about the
obviously.
demographics with people working in New Haven or going towards Waterbury. But you're looking at, 1 and 2 bedrooms. People are going to have kids. Did you consider that people are going to drive their kids to school with those demographics? You didn't mention that, so I want to ask you that.
Yeah, no, the statistics we use have all kinds of housing. So we're not looking at one specific demographic of person. So the data is, it's called trip generation, and it's data that's provided and then summarized, and then you get a statistical analysis of this type of housing for having kids, not having kids, going to work early, going to work later. All of those factors come out in the statistics.
Okay.
And this gives us an indication of what could be expected.
I have a couple more questions, but you look like you want to jump in.
Sorry, I apologize. Do you mind if I get in here for just one moment? Just before we get too many questions going, if I may, for the record, Andrea Gomes, Commissioner Natali, Ms. Fiore will be talking about school children, but we're really only looking at 4 to 8 children for the entire 74 units. So she'll get to that in a second.
Okay, that was just that's not part of my question. I was just following up Ms. Corderas' question. I want to go through my questions.
Oh, okay. And may I just add one thing on Commissioner Corderas' question, please? I just wanted to point out that the level of service does not change. I think that's the important point here. If you look at the table, Commissioner, in the traffic study, the level of service doesn't change from existing conditions to developed.
So we're just exasperating a big problem.
I'm sorry?
So you're an E or an F in some of these intersections, we're just going to add more to it. So it's already in an F, so it doesn't matter?
That's not what I said, Commissioner.
I'm asking a question.
No, and I respectfully, I disagree. The traffic study, and obviously we have Mr. Sullivan here, but the traffic study is that the proposed development will have minimal impact. But I'll let the commission continue.
Okay. So I have a couple more things to go through. So you're talking about a lot of what-ifs. We have state officials, we have town officials that have tried for years to improve those intersections. So you're saying that you're going to try. Maybe it'll go, maybe it won't with the state. Do you have approval from the town to widen Mountain Road? The town has spent a lot of money putting in bike lanes, putting in the little things on the road for people to safely travel on their bikes, and you're talking about widening the road, so making it less safe for the bikers, in my opinion.
The sharrows will remain as they are today. The signage will remain, so the bike facilities will be exactly the same. The only difference, and this widening is not something substantial, what we need to do is widen it just, right now there's a 12-foot lane and there's a shoulder of about 3 feet or so. It varies from 2 to 3 feet. We just want to make that shoulder and the combined lane from 13 to maybe 14 or 13 to maybe 17 or 18 feet, but we do some of that with the pavement markings on the other side and some of that with a sliver widening.
So if somebody's turning from Route 70 right onto Mountain Road, and they're trying to make that left-hand turn in, which I don't mean to sound funny, and please don't take it that way, but any of your renderings, they don't show the traffic that backs up to Ives Road. They don't show the traffic that backs up past Pop's Pizza. Okay, please, serious. Like Mr. Kurt said, please, hold that. None of your renderings show that. It shows one car here, one car there. So if somebody's taking a right from Route 70 onto Route 10, and they can't make a left-hand turn because you have traffic backed up to Ives Row, and you have more traffic that's gonna back up onto onto Route 70 because these people can't take a left-hand turn in there, how is that not increasing or decreasing the service levels or creating a safety issue?
Well, you're basically explaining why we did the bypass and why we're doing the widening. So if somebody takes the right turn to take the left turn in, they'll be sitting there, and there'll be enough area around them to easily flow by.
So that gets back to my previous statement, when the town spent the money and the time making it safe for bikers to go down Route 10, you're saying that that's no longer gonna be there because now cars are gonna be going into that lane to get around there.
They're not bike lanes, first of all. They're sharrows, which are advisory. So the same advisories will exist with the sharrows and the signage.
Okay.
If anything, it would be providing a larger shoulder for bikers in the southbound direction. Everything else would be status quo.
I'll just say, in my opinion, that's not creating a safe environment there. But I want to go back, to have one more question, I'll pass it on. So, Mr. Glidden, in our 44A 10.6 calls for a certain amount of parking spaces. So if I'm reading this correctly, for 1 bedroom, you need 2 spaces per unit. For 2 bedrooms, you need 3 spaces per unit. Okay? Doing that math, you need 181 spaces, and they're gonna have 148. How is that meeting the regulations?
I'd ask the applicant to break down their parking ratios.
Sure. And that's looking at the regulations 44A 10.6. And my follow-up question with that will be, were the correct number of trip generations done based on the correct parking? And I'm sorry, I didn't account, in the 181, I didn't account for the studio because we don't have any regulations for the studios for parking.
So you use the 1 bedroom for the studio then?
Referring to section 44A 8.7, the following minimum parking spaces are required: 2 spaces for each dwelling unit. There's not a breakdown based on unit type.
So then, what's 44A 10.6?
I don't have, I printed out section 44A in its entirety, and I don't have a 10.6.
I don't have the 10.6 either.
Okay.
Is it older?
You tell me. It's on our online regulations and it's in the books that we have.
The book that was given to me.
You need it, Michael?
Yeah, because my regs, I have just the 2 spaces per each dwelling unit, under 44A 8.7.
He's gonna bring it over. Yeah, yeah.
While they're looking at that, how many, you said there was, how many more speakers?
Just one, Mr. Chairman, and then I'll defer my closing comments so that the commission
Yeah,
can continue
okay.
asking questions or comments. And we'll, Ms. Fiore will keep her comments short.
Okay, anyone else want to ask a question while we're looking at stuff now? Mr. Stroll.
He's gonna go first.
Mr. Solomon.
Just the trip generation, weekday AM peak, weekday PM peak, what are those hours? Is that like 7 to 9, 7 to 10, 8?
It's 1 hour between 7 to 9. I could tell you precisely which hour it is if you bear with me.
So it's 8 to 9, for example, 1 hour.
Right, right.
And the reason why I asked it, because only a third of the units have a person coming or going?
Correct, that's round numbers, that's.
Okay.
While I'm speaking, to answer your question about parking versus traffic, parking spaces don't generate the traffic. So you could have 5,000 parking spaces, and there wouldn't be any more traffic than if you had 148. It's the units themselves that generate the traffic.
Mr. Stroll, anything?
Okay. I believe that this is one of the most dangerous intersections in Cheshire, and I'm in the business.
Okay, oh, come on, listen, please.
I know I did 2 accidents there in the last couple of months, and I see how many accidents, 30, in this time frame. There's one thing you never mentioned is that, and I know that from living on West Main Street for my whole life before I came up to Route 10. All the oversized loads, over 80,000 pounds, wide loads, everything, travel right by that road on Mountain Road on Route 70. From 68 to come around the corner. I believe that a left hand coming over 2 lanes is just not even in the cards and can't even be. I doubt the DOT would approve that because it is the oversized load route. I mean, if you get a permit over 80,000, over width, over length, you go that road, you come through Prospect, you come down around the corner. There's been a 1 million pound tractor trailer that went by there. 1 million pounds drove by. So that saying, I really think that's an issue of going in and out of the Route 70 exit and entrance. Maybe, that's something that needs to be addressed.
Sure. Let me just address that quickly.
Well, let me finish all the ones I got. Buses. Where the heck is the bus supposed to go? Because you don't have enough room to come in on the Mountain Road side and stop because you're going to be in a 2-lane road there. So your proposal is to make the end of Mountain Road 4 lanes? Is that what your proposal is?
No, the cross-section will not change. The shoulder will just get bigger.
So you're saying that the shoulder on the side, on the West Main side of the road, going towards Bellagio, is going to be wider?
The shoulder on the west side of Mountain
That
Road.
intersection right now, you have 2 lanes at the very end of that intersection also with a lane coming in. So you have 2 lanes going out.
Are we talking about Mountain Road?
Mountain Road.
Mountain Road, you have 2 lanes going northbound and 1 lane southbound.
Okay.
You will have that same lane use, except the southbound lane shoulder.
So where would the bus stop? I mean, I know she's going to answer that question, but I mean, I don't see a safe zone. You can't stop on Route 70 because that's severely dangerous. I mean, everybody that's trying to make it past the gas station, past Mountain Road, and then it's a drag race to Bellagio. I mean, but anyway, that's what's going on there. So I'm asking is where is this bus going to stop? Is it going to be on Mountain Road to pick up the children, or?
So typically, we would work through this with the Board of Ed. What happens in some cases, and we went through this on one of the developments we did on Route 10, it was safer to come off of Route 10, come into the development. As a matter of fact, a cul-de-sac was built at the entrance of the development. So one possibility is the bus could come on site.
To spin around the cul-de-sac.
Right.
Okay.
And
That's a good answer.
And another option, believe it or not, when there's traffic, buses stopping on arterials, the traffic is stopping. So you don't like that to happen on the opposite side. So you wouldn't want that on the southbound leg of Mountain Road, for example, because then they got to cross the front of the bus and cross the street. But all these things will be discussed with the Board of Ed.
But I've also seen people stopping for the bus at Quarry Village for the kids, and then people blowing by the bus. I've seen that. I've personally seen that and went like, whoa. I mean, that's what happens there. They figured 2 lanes, they still got a lane to drive, which is ridiculous.
I am going to tell you, Mr. Stroll, that this is going to be held open. I keep referring to everyone that's out there. I do want people to speak. I know some of us might have some questions. I just don't want to dive into one thing too much.
right.
These are
That's
questions
it.
that come up, afterwards. It's getting a little far.
So just to get to his first point, or his first question with the left crossing the 2 lanes, this will, this whole access plan has to be approved by DOT. So we'll have an encroachment permit, and if they have a concern or desire to change that, it could just, the entrance could just be going through the intersection, taking the left, and coming in on Mountain Road. We think this is the least disruptive. This would be our recommendation, but as you may know, DOT will have their own opinions on this, and we will be advocating for not only this driveway, but we'll also be advocating for the change of the signal.
Perfect. Mr. Moulton, comment?
True or false? We have to give an approval before DOT will look at this. So DOT, we're going to approve something or disapprove something, then you go to DOT. You don't go to DOT first and then come back to watch for an approval. Is that correct?
Well, partially. So we often have meetings with DOT to tell them what we're thinking to get their preliminary input. Something like this signal change, they would want a formal encroachment permit application, because this is not going to be determined by the folks at the district office. They're going to take this and send it up to Newington, and Newington will want to know that it's approved. And that's why our recommendation is not to do that, but it's to go to DOT to get permission to do it and then do it. So if DOT is against that, we still feel strongly that this development, as designed, will not be impacting operations. So once this is built, I know it's frustrating going through that intersection, particularly in the afternoon, coming westbound, but you're not going to say, you know, this is so much worse because there's these 3 extra cars that are coming through here this hour.
Okay, please.
So that's still our finding, that we're not impacting operations, we're not adding safety concerns, and where we thought there might be a safety concern with the bypass, and that was a very cogent point, because without the bypass, that's exactly what our concern would be, that the queues northbound would have this residual impact for people trying to take a left turn southbound. So we said, if we're going to have this left turn, we have to make sure we have bypass so that it doesn't disrupt traffic. So we think we've thought about all these things, and when we got done and determined there was no impact, what we said is, let's look at this harder, see if we could do something to make things better out here. And that's what we came up with, and it does exist in the state, but it's not their preferred method.
Well, the good news is, in 5 minutes, hopefully, the people will be able to speak, and because of their direct knowledge of what happens on West Main Street, we can take into consideration what they have to say about the traffic as opposed to what you have to say. Thank you.
Okay, next presenter, please. Oh, Mr. Glidden, did you have the comment on the parking space?
Yeah, I'm going to review the record for the previous, when Hazel Drive went through this commission, there was a text amendment, and I wanted to see what was approved for the parking ratios, because what Mr. Talley has is maybe a previous version of the regulations versus what I was given as, so I just would like to review that. We can get back to the commission. This hearing is going to be left open, so it's not like we need that resolved this evening. Plus, the parking ratios really would be specific to the special permit application, not the zone change, but it's still relevant to this conversation.
Okay, thank you.
All set? Thank you. Julie?
Hello, my name is Julia Fiore. I'm a senior planner with SLR. I'm a certified AICP planner, and I specialize in economic and fiscal impact analysis. So we've conducted some preliminary analyses of the fiscal and economic benefits of the proposed project. So fiscal benefits are speaking directly to tax revenue and costs to the municipality for providing services. So Based on an assessed value, based on a cost approach, we're estimating that the property would generate approximately $446,000 in annual property tax. And then considering the motor vehicle tax, assuming very conservatively only 82 vehicles, that would be an additional $30,600. And then, so that's the revenue side. And then looking at the potential costs, so using industry standard demographic multipliers from Rutgers University that are based on census data, based on the types of development, the rent ranges of the development, and number of units, and number of bedrooms and units that are appropriate for this development. The range there's two different sets. There's an older set for Connecticut and a more recent set for New Jersey. So the range would be between 4 and 8 public school children who would potentially reside at the project. Looking at the average cost per student, and again, this is conservative based on, we have not eliminated any fixed cost. We assume that the average per capita cost that's supported by taxes would be proportionally increasing based on these 4 to 8 additional students. And then we also looked at the per capita cost of providing general municipal services outside of education, again, based on a per capita rate. And we found that the annual net fiscal impact would be positive, looking at both the, we present both a low and a high range based on those two different estimates of public school children generation. Okay.
Mr. Bowman.
Quickly, these are all wet. The mill rate is completely different by almost 20% today. So your assessed value that you have, is that based on the assessment today, which we have just gone through your reassessment, or is this based on the assessment of 5 years ago?
So it's based on a cost approach based on construction cost and land value. So that is something I'm aware of, that you did recently do a massive, revaluation and have a new mill rate. So in order to do apples to apples with costs and benefits, we use the 23-24 numbers. So looking at both costs and
Well,
the
if
mill
your mill
rates.
rate's 28 and you're basing it on 35, that's definitely apples and oranges.
So even accounting for a lower mill rate, it would still be a net positive fiscal impact. And if we were looking at, updated numbers for all of those things for the budget, for population, et cetera, that would be something we'd want to recalculate, but it would still net positive, given that currently there would need to be around 50% reduction in property tax generation as compared to this to result in anything not being positive. So we did take very conservative estimates in terms of cost, but point taken, and that's something, once we have final numbers that we could incorporate. So thank you.
Fiscal impact on the town is something we normally don't consider. But what's the fiscal impact on the community as a whole, the economic impact for the town aside from the municipal services?
Yeah, so thank you. The next slide, we'll be talking about that, and I apologize. It looks like the text got smushed a little, but so we did look at the economic benefits of both the construction of the project, the investment and jobs created from construction, and then the potential local spending of new residents. So looking at based on construction costs, we use an input-output model called IMPLAN, and that will estimate the employment, the labor income generated, and the value added to the economy, or the GDP. So for the construction of the project, we're estimating 133 direct FTE employment over the course of the construction period, with 13.6 million in labor income. And then looking at indirect and induced impacts, which is supply chain spending, and then the spending of workers who were employed, that will also generate induced jobs. So the totals there are 166 FTE supported, 16.8 in labor income, and 19.8 million in value added to the economy. And so that's during construction. And then during operations, we looked at the spending potential of new residents. So this is based on estimated incomes based on the rents. And we used the U.S. Consumer Expenditure Survey, the U.S. Census Consumer Expenditure Survey, that breaks down spending categories for different income levels. And we selected just a select few spending categories like groceries, restaurants, pharmacy, pet care that are typically spent very locally, and made that conservative assumption of that about $1 million in annual spending would occur from the new residents of the project. So, thank you.
One comment to add on to what Mr. Bowman said. So I'd like to see updated numbers based on our current mill rate reassessment and all that.
Okay.
I'd also like to see something done with the estimate of 4 to 8 children. We have some people here that have testified tonight on different applications in town that said we're only going to see 3 kids from this development. We have to add trailers onto our schools right now because these developments exploded. So the estimates were 3, we have 8, 9, 10 kids. So somebody's got to look at that again, because I understand your numbers, I understand your statistics, your models and all that, but I'll say the majority of the developments in town, we're seeing much higher than some folks in the room have testified for on previous applications. So if you're going to look at the taxes there and the mill rate, I'd also like you to look at that too.
Okay, that's something we can certainly look into, is identifying, exact school children generation from developments in town. That's something we've done for previous projects, so yeah.
And I'd like to look at again, we have some people here, I'll say from SLR, sorry, don't mean to throw you under the bus there, but have testified that we're going to have a lower number than we actually have. So, again, I don't want to go out of town and look at different statistics from this manual or the St. Louis study or the Kansas study.
Sure.
I want to look at actual projections in Cheshire from what was projected to what the actual is.
Okay, thank you.
With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll defer any closing comments I have to the commission. Whether the commission wants to open up public comment or ask additional questions, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, the closing comments aren't going to happen tonight anyways,
Oh, I
because
know
it's
that.
going to be closing.
There are some responses that I can make to some of the questions and things that were asked, but we can address those in advance of the next hearing to allow the public an opportunity to
Okay.
speak.
Also, the next hearing, I mean, you talked nothing about the fact that this is a commercial property you're asking to change to, obviously, a residential affordable housing. You mentioned the plan of conservation and development. You actually mentioned calling this the gateway. Did you read that we actually call this the gateway property? We talk about this very property, and everywhere that it says something about this property, we talked about mixed use. So now you're taking the mixed use aspect out of it and gave us no reason why other than the need for affordable housing, which I guess could be your reason as I'm talking to myself, whatever. But still, I found that, you mentioned everything else in our plan of conservation and development, but not the fact that we want to see mixed use in there, and we're losing commercial base, which is something we don't have a lot of commercial base in this town as we speak now.
Understood, and if I may, Mr. Chairman, yes, it's the need for affordable housing and the need for housing generally. Also, 44A explicitly provides that C3 zoned districts are subject to 44A.
Yeah, well, okay.
So.
It doesn't still speak to the fact that...
I didn't mean the so, Commissioner. I see you shrugging. I didn't mean the so in a disrespectful way. I'm sorry?
Pushing all this on Cheshire. We're a little bedroom community. We really don't need all this housing. We don't need this traffic. We have enough of as it is. And you're using this as an excuse so that your developers can make a ton of money off the town of Cheshire. I asked before, why is it 100%? Well, you can't afford to put 100% affordable in here. If you really cared about that, and you really cared about the people that need this housing, you'd come here with 100%. But no, you want to suck off the backs of Cheshire to bring in this affordable housing 830G, because if we say no to this text change, you're going to come right back in 830G and try to push your way through again, right?
Commissioner,
Can you tell me if we vote down this text change, what's your next plan?
Commissioner, that's on the applicant to determine what they're going to do. Is it amend the proposal and come back with a different application? That's the applicant's decision, not mine.
Right. You're taking commercial property, which you guys say we need affordable housing for these people who work in these little commercial establishments so that they can live here, but you're taking away commercial that we don't have a lot of, so, to put housing with no jobs here. So it doesn't balance.
Okay,
You have to stop.
one last comment from Mr. Bowman.
My comment
We're
is
going
on
to
the
public.
plan of conservation and development, on the third paragraph on page 9, actually your conventional development of an undeveloped residentially zoned property in the area. So this talks specifically, like the chairman said, so this is the balance of the area, not the commercial end of the area. And it says that type shall, under the Connecticut statute 823, which encourages expansion of housing opportunities and design choices to accommodate a variety of household types and needs, including affordable concentration of development around transportation nodes and major transportation corridors to support the viability of transportation options and land reuse. So I, like the chairman, don't see how this commercial property should be turned into residential property. Thank you.
Perfect, that's what I had all in here.
And we'll be responding to some of those comments, if I may, for the next hearing. So I'll leave that up to the public now. Thank you.
Last one.
Just real quick, this is for staff.
Oh, okay.
So we're gonna go to the public, public's gonna speak. We've been presented with this petition. What effect does this petition have on this application?
Pursuant to state statute, the petition exceeds the percentage to trigger a majority vote of this commission, meaning a 2/3 vote is required for approval of the zone change. So in the sense you're a 9-member commission, 9 voting members, 6 people would have to vote in the affirmative to approve the application.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay. Thank you. And with that, we're going to go to the public for comment. Ladies first.
Hi, good evening. For the record, I am State Representative Liz Linehan. I am here both in my professional capacity and in a personal capacity as someone who would be affected by this change. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, and to the esteemed members of the Commission, I thank you very much for the work that you've done in getting to the numbers that we have now for affordable housing here in the town of Cheshire. However, in that growth, which obviously is protected under law and is extremely important, we all know that workforce development housing is extremely important for things like the recruitment and retention of police officers, career firefighters, teachers. But what the law also allows is for you to not approve something like this based on, as you know, when public interests clearly outweigh the need for affordable housing, and such public interests cannot be protected by reasonable changes to the affordable housing development. So there are 2 things I want to bring up when you think about how you're going to vote on this. First of all, we know that we're talking about the public interest. There is the health and the safety. We've heard about the traffic issues. What you may not know, because it's not in the fancy books and numbers that they have, is as state representative, I take phone calls, emails, and complaints all the time about that traffic. And I have worked tirelessly to try to fix that light. In fact, I estimate that at least 3 to 4 times a year for the last 8 years in elected office, I have worked directly with DOT to try to reduce or eliminate that traffic backup. And even now, we still can't figure out how to do it. That traffic does back up. You had mentioned, Mr. Vice Chairman, to Ives Row. It goes past Ives Row, sir. And in fact, I live on Sycamore Lane, which is off of Westmore. I cannot turn left out of Westmore between the hours of 3 and 6 p.m. When I have teenagers learning to drive in that area who can't pull out. And Westmore is not the only road. We're also talking Peck Lane, Linwood, Robin. I mean, it goes down, right? So this is a true safety issue. And in fact, one commissioner, I believe it was you, Commissioner Strollo, who mentioned the school bus. In fact, I have received so many complaints about passing school buses that I've worked with the Board of Ed to ensure that those cameras are always on that bus route. And I'm positive if you look at that, you'll see that the highest number of tickets for passing a school bus is within that route. And a school bus cannot turn down into the condos. They have to get off there. There is actually no room for a school bus to turn around in those condos. So there's no way, as the gentleman said, that the school bus can go in. No, it cannot. We've been trying to do that for years. It is impossible. Additionally, they were talking about, now I had a whole thing planned that I wanted to say, but there was something I wanted to make mention of. The woman who came here and talked about the financial impact. She also talked about the creation of jobs. But that is actually, this seems like a really beautiful bow tied on an ugly package. You know, it's because of Interstate Commerce Clause, we actually can't guarantee that those jobs are going to be local jobs. A construction company can come in and they can hire people from out of state, and the state never gets that money. That money never gets put back into our economy. I know that because I tried to write a bill making sure that that doesn't happen, but we can't because of the Interstate Commerce Clause. So once again, you know, the pretty pictures, the site looks fantastic. I can tell you it's just not going to work. But what is interesting to me, because we know 8-30G is a very difficult law with lots of pieces to it. So it is difficult, and I think the public should know, it is difficult for a P&Z to deny. There will be court after this. And Mr. Bowman tried to ask, I believe it was Mr. Bowman, what the next step would be. And they said, we'll see. It will be court. It will be court, and we know that. But it says here that such public interest, it can be denied if such public interest cannot be protected by reasonable changes to the housing development. So I ask, when you vote it down, hopefully, and it comes back through the courts, I believe it's something we should actually go to the courts for this because of the traffic issue alone. But when it comes back, I believe it should be noted here today that the commission and the petitioners should sit down and look for another site in town that makes more sense. The town of Cheshire is not interested in stopping affordable housing, which is evidenced by the growth that this commission has overseen. What we need is a better spot. We have put a ton of future tax dollars into new schools. That opens up 2 areas with which the town can actually sell to a developer for the purposes of affordable housing. One of them could be Darcy, and that is an area that is generally close to where they want it. It is a large enough area to fit that development, and the town could see real economic benefit from selling that property, and they could get a good deal. That is something I would like to put out there.
I hate to cut you off, but this is not a 8-30G application. This is a zone text change. So yes, I agree with you where the next step is going to be, but you're going a little too far.
I just probably won't be at that meeting, so I'm going to lay it all bare.
No, I'd ask you not to, because there's a lot of people behind you. Your constituents are behind you.
But
so
I just would like to say, essentially, is that a no vote today is honestly in the best interest, simply because of those traffic issues alone. We have not been able to fix it. The working theory right now is that a simple power outage or a power surge is the reason why that light keeps resetting. And that's not something that can be fixed without digging it up and doing it all over again. And DOT is looking at that. And lastly, I will say, I am not sure if this is allowable under law, so I defer to you all. But at the very least, I think we should require an independent traffic study through a third party who has no economic benefit to the approval of this zone change. And so if that is allowable under law, I think that would be a good place to start.
It is, but I'm not sure it is for a zone text change. I mean,
Hey,
maybe
Liz,
you
you wanna
guys would
do
know.
something? Sure. Change 830G.
Yeah.
Because we
We lose everything. Everything.
ever meet it. Ever.
So I will tell you, I did change 8-30G, and I had almost enough votes to do it in a way, and I worked with Mr. Glidden, and it would have been really great for Cheshire. Unfortunately, there weren't enough votes because of the Republican side. But thank you very much. I
asked this at every one of our public hearings. I know everybody has issues or whatever else, but if you've heard the issue come up once, I please ask you to not bring it up again and again and again and again, because we know, like with traffic, everyone has an issue with traffic. This place definitely has an issue with traffic. So if we can just please hear new things, that would be helpful to us, and it lets more people speak tonight.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. My name's Christy Leff. I'm an attorney at Bender, Anderson, and Barba in North Haven. I represent Quarry Village Association. We've been their counsel for many, many years. Quarry Village consists of 98 residential units directly across West Main Street from the proposed development. I'm speaking on behalf of Quarry Village in opposition to the petition for the zone change. There are many residents from Quarry Village also in attendance here today, so I'd ask them to either stand or raise their hands so that the commission knows who they are. And some of them may want to speak today too. Thank you. There are other residents from Quarry Village who are not here who've signed the petition in opposition to the zone change as well. My client's position is that the zone change should be denied because the proposed development of 74 residential units at this location will have a substantial negative impact on health and safety of the residents in the area that cannot be corrected by reasonable changes to the petition. That's the standard that this commission needs to use. We've heard a lot about traffic already. That was going to be my lead-off point. The deficiencies in the traffic study commissioned by the petitioner are quite obvious. First of all, it's questionable because it did take a 5-year period into consideration from 2019 to 2024, in the middle of which was a pandemic. And we all know what happened then. People were not using the road. People were quarantined, not using the road. So I don't think that traffic study as it stands is reflective of actual conditions. But even still, the study found that there are 30 accidents in this location, noted delays at the intersections of Mountain Road, Prospect Street, thousands of vehicles entering this location on a daily basis. We've heard about the subpar conditions, the D, the E, and the F. And even the traffic study notes on the bottom of page 6 that the recommendations included are not a complete fix. And we've seen that the study uses sort of cherry-pick statistics as opposed to people who will speak tonight about the real conditions, people who drive that road every day. So what we want to focus on is that intersection, which we've already heard is dangerous. As I said, the residents of Quarry Village who actually drive these roads on a daily basis with the heavy congestion in this area currently, that makes it difficult to make these left turns into Quarry Village from Waterbury or back left out of Quarry Village. I'm told it backs up to Stop and Shop on a daily basis. We've heard about the concerns for the children at the bus stop. And this is the one primary egress for Quarry Village. There is an emergency access out the back, but for those 98 units, that egress onto West Main Street is the only means of in and out. So yes, many safety concerns, let alone the congestion and higher concentration of vehicles. Again, we looked at cherry-pick statistics of 29 vehicles a day. It just seems unrealistic. We've also heard about the impacts on the bike lanes and bike safety for children as well, or other bikers. The increased traffic caused by the 74 residents will create a significant traffic safety hazard, a recipe for disaster, basically. These cannot be changed or corrected by reasonable changes to the petition. The other thing I want to talk about, something different, is about the wetlands. Again, we're talking about impact on health and safety. There is a large portion that we saw on the proposals that will not be impacted, but there are areas of this development that are wetlands that will be impacted. Now, wetlands,
Mr.
we
Chairman?
all know.
May I interrupt this? So the protection of inland wetlands is not your jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Is therefore not germane to this discussion regarding
Thank
the
you.
zone change.
And I'm glad you go a little bit forward because you're speaking for all the people from Corey Village. But again, I just need people to take. You know, I hate to put a time limit on people, but if they could be considerate to the rest of the people that want to speak.
I just want to, even though this is not your jurisdiction,
We
I
understand.
do want to add that if we're talking about health and safety, and if wetlands are crucial for the protection of
Which is why we have an
flooding.
agency in town that would take care of that.
Right, but I want to just make it clear
Thank
to
you.
this commission because it goes to the very, the standard to be applied for approval of this petition. And it's my proposal that the impact on the wetlands will impact health and safety.
Without their approval, we would never vote on it anyways. So.
And tying into that is also one of the, within the purview of this commission. My last point is the water, sewer and storm drain implications. I know that that goes more to the approval of the actual
Application.
site plan if it gets past this zone change. But I'm told that the sewers and the storm drains in the area are already overburdened. So again, it goes to health. So in conclusion, I have read Cheshire's Affordable Housing Plan for 2020 to 2027. I understand the Commission's commitment to affordable housing. But again, this is not the right location. As we've heard, there are other locations that may be better for this. So on behalf of Quarry Village, I ask this commission to reject the petition for zone change because of the substantial concerns for health and safety that cannot be corrected by reasonable changes to the petition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Name is George Heseltine. I am a resident of Cheshire for over 20 years and a resident of Quarry Village.
Need your
Thank you
address.
for the board.
Quarry Village.
What's that?
Need your address. That's for the record. We need the address.
121 Quarry Village Road.
Thank you.
And thank you, the board, for the time. I'm not one on taking notes. Usually I present for a living, but I'm new to this and learned a lot today. First and foremost, I'd like to say I was extremely disappointed in SLR's presentation. They took up an hour and 45 minutes of our time, yet didn't get to the point of why we're here. And Mr. Kurtz, you pointed that out at the end, is we're here about a zoning change, right? Nothing that they said to me really addressed that. There's probably a good 4 or 5 minutes of their presentation that did, which leads me to believe that they're avoiding something, right? They're not getting to the point. They're not why we're here. Couple of things I'll point out, and I had a question. I think, Mr. Vitale, you had the signatures that was signed for the petition. It's my understanding that, okay.
We all have a copy.
So it's my understanding that 25%, if 25% of the impacted residents sign that petition, then we need a majority vote. Is that?
You have a
accurate?
majority vote now, yes.
How many signed the petition of those that were impacted?
Do you know the number? I don't know if it has, on the petition, it has the number.
It's 190 signatures.
And 190 signatures, and how many were of impacted residents?
72.
Interesting. So that represents the people that are here, right? And for the board, right? This is not, we didn't meet a 25% threshold for you to vote a majority. We exceeded threshold, right? We blew it out of the water because of the concerns of our community, what's going on here. I do want to address the 4 to 8 children impact. So we have, as what was pointed out by our attorney, 98 units in Quarry Village. We have 33 children. So we're talking about 75 units, but you're telling me that we're going to get 4 to 8 children, yet 25% of that is affordable housing, and I have to assume that from an affordable housing perspective, those are going to drive people in here who want to give their children the advantage of a great education that we provide here at Cheshire, Connecticut, right? So 4 to 8 And SLR, I really will point out, and somebody brought it up earlier, I don't know what this 830 zoning, or 830.
Takes away all our powers up here.
Yeah, and why it was made political by Liz, I don't know, but in the end, you should come here with third-party data, not your own. Everybody that stood up here and talked to us was from SLR. Why are we believing your data? You're all here to make money. You're not here to.
We could do that if they
improve
got into
Cheshire,
the application. We would in this case for sure ask for third-party assistance.
And I'll now refer to the cars. So, Dave, you have 75 households. Based on the data that I just collected, there are 1.5 workers per household in Connecticut.
If you could just address us all the time. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. Thank you, sorry. That leaves us with 112 workers, people working, right, in these 75 residents. 20%, based on the data collected last year because of the boom of work from home because of COVID, 20% of those would be expected to work from home. So now we're left with 88 working. 88 people are working away from the home, yet only 27 of them are driving. I'm not sure who these people are and if they're all jumping in the same car, but we got to look at this data and better understand what we're talking about, right? SLR, shame on you. Shame on you for this data. And this took me 5 minutes Googling to collect this data. So I'll leave it there. I know other people have to talk, but I just, this is new to me. I've never been in this town hall, environment before. I hope it all doesn't go like this, but truly,
Not
Board,
usually.
I hope you listen to us. I've heard it back from you on comments, which I think is great, but I look forward to hearing a strong, majority no vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Sharon Joachim, 1136 Pamela Lane. I did want to open with, I don't think that the betting capital of Connecticut needs to have condo capital at their gateway. I just want to start out with that. That's not what it should represent. I am going to belabor the point of the traffic just very briefly because I not only live in town, I work in town. I work across the street at the Board of Education. Well, I'm about 2 miles away from home, and it used to take me 10, maybe 15 minutes on a bad day. Now it takes me a half an hour. So I can speak directly to, and I travel it 4 times a day. Most days of the week I go home for lunch. So although there are a lot of days that I turn around because I know I don't have time to let the dog out. So there you have that. I also want to talk to their point about going down Route 10 and up Higgins and all that, because you can't get up and down Route 10 either. I've had to go to meetings at the high school. It takes me 20 minutes to get from the Board of Ed to the high school. Okay, so traffic, bogus. I also want to talk about our infrastructure. Why we don't have a paid fire department yet. We're adding all this. I know there's something about, and forgive me, I'm not educated. I'm trying to start to learn about all the regulations, and I'll never get to where you are, and I appreciate the work that you do for us. But I know that we can't build anything higher than the apparatus of the fire department, I learned recently. Is that accurate? Am I saying that correctly? But we don't have a paid fire department, right? We don't have men on standby, men or women, excuse me, if there's an emergency. Is that accurate?
I mean,
At some point, you
I
can
don't,
go over.
I don't know if you can say paid's better than volunteer. We've done really good here with our fire department.
Well,
We have
previous to all the building
apparatuses.
that's going on, right?
I believe there are standby drivers and people that are at the fire department, so.
Okay,
I
so
don't-
maybe we would need more information on that for the public, so that we can be better educated on that. Because I think that it's a different landscape now. It's a different we're different. It feels more city here. I feel like it should say, welcome to the city of Cheshire, not the town of Cheshire. I also heard that there's room, the trail on West Main, which my husband and I walk all year long, stops the traffic there too. I don't know if they took that into account of the traffic. But that's been difficult, that light. And I also heard, and these are rumors, I'm just trying to ascertain if there's this information that is correct or not, that the Country Lumber, the old property there, is up for condo building as well.
I don't know, but could we just please address this zone text change here?
Well, then that's it. Thank you for your
Thank you.
Dave Rochford. I live at 805 West Main Street. You've already clarified one thing for me this evening. I had submitted this petition to Planning and Zoning about a week ago. I think the cover page speaks for itself. I don't want to waste a lot of time here this evening. In the meantime, subsequent to submitting that, we've got about another 60 signatures, and if this just kept going, there's such an opposition to it, the numbers would just keep growing. I'll forward these copies to the secretary at the end. She can forward them to you at an appropriate time. I'm going to try and be very brief because that's something I'm not known for. I've presented we've presented the data in terms of the objections to this. Just a few statements, really. I simply listened to what I've heard tonight, and I've just got to say, I see no benefit to the town of Cheshire to approve it. I just don't see a benefit to our community. Secondly, not an expert at this, but it's my understanding Cheshire has very little commercial property in Cheshire. Why in the world are we going to give it up? We can't replace it, is my understanding. Why are we giving up a very valuable commodity? Again, I said I'm going to be brief. So lastly, although I don't have the designation, I consider myself a bit of an expert in this area. I live at 805 West Main Street. I've lived there most of my life. My family has owned this property for generations. It used to be that when I pulled out of that property, I worried about being hit decades ago with how quickly people can pass. Now you don't get out. But more importantly, it's not about traffic. I keep hearing traffic, traffic, traffic. I've got to tell you, the word traffic really needs to be synonymous with safety. It's not safe. It's not safe today withstanding this proposal. I sit out on my front porch often at the end of the day. I see people trying to respond from our police department, our fire department, and ambulances. They cannot get through as it is today. Believe me, people, this is a safety issue as it stands today. I've witnessed this, and I think I probably have seen the most exponential increase in traffic in any other area of Cheshire, right here in front of this proposed development. I believe I'm a bit of an expert, having watched it, seen it. It's great to hear about the conceptual thoughts of traffic offered by the developer. This isn't conceptual. I live it. It's dangerous. It's dangerous now. And if it could have been fixed, wouldn't we have fixed it already? All we're doing is talking about making it worse. So again, traffic and safety are inseparable. I'm going to make it that brief so others can talk. And I am certainly urging you, as the people here feel strongly about, turn this down if for nothing else. The fact is the safety of this area is already compromised and it can only get worse.
Thank you.
I'm going to apologize in advance because I am going to be saying a lot of the same things. I will talk very quickly because when I'm nervous, I talk fast. My name is Teresa Gumpert. I'm speaking on behalf of my family. We live on 13 Brigadoon Drive. I'm speaking against the proposed zoning change for the 4-story, 74 multifamily units being proposed on the corner of Mountain Road and West Main Street. This is a congested area already and will pose a grave safety risk. Again, I apologize. The increased traffic alone will cause serious, potentially life-threatening risk to pedestrians and motorists alike. These outside developers have no care or concern or knowledge of that intersection, and they don't really care about its impact on the town or its residents. It is changing the character and quality of our town, but most importantly, it is impacting safety. We do not have the infrastructure these projects require, nor do we really want the infrastructure and the financial burdens this will place on taxpayers. What they presented really was a work of fiction, in my opinion. There will be increased need for paid firefighters and police, increased burdens on schools and need for teachers, increased demands on water treatment facilities, and we already have the burden of the prison. We should get a pass on these regulations. New Canaan has successfully fought against some of these mandates from the state, and we should too. We do not want nor need this development, and I urge all of the council members to put a full stop on all affordable housing and multifamily housing units until impact studies can be done. I would rather see my tax dollars and my family's tax dollars fight these developments in court while we, the taxpayers, vote people out of office and change the laws if needed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Greg Wolf, 842 West Main Street in Cheshire. Good evening, Chairman Kurtz and Commissioners. I am speaking tonight in opposition to the zone text change for 869 West Main Street. I live across the street from this project. My family has lived at 842 West Main for several generations. I've seen the area change like many people in this room have. West Cheshire was rural and quiet. This is no longer the case. We all know the challenges of navigating from point A to point B in our town. We all know the pinch points and the challenges they create. This project is in the middle of one of the busiest of those points. We will hear from the developer, as we did, how the amount of traffic increase will be of minimal impact to the area. What the traffic study does not describe is how drivers behave in this area. You will hear from many about their experiences with this as well. This development will negatively affect conditions on West Main Street and Mountain Road. With this being said, I understand that eventually this property will be developed. It has had a building on it before, and it will again in the future. Cheshire has a very small amount of viable commercial property. Of the 21,000 plus acres in town, less than 3,000 is non-residential, and developable commercial property is a small percentage of that. This property is one of the few remaining parcels zoned commercial. If the zoning is changed on this property, it will be changed forever. I feel that the remaining residential zone property should be developed based on the usable land and not using the wetlands to scale up the density for this development. I would like for this commission to deny this application and then put a pause on larger scale residential developments until the plan of conservation and development is reworked to create standards based on current conditions in Cheshire. We need to be thoughtful and determine what is appropriate for specific locations with specific challenges. Our town is growing at a rapid pace, and we need to appropriately manage that growth. I understand the need for housing, and specifically affordable housing in Cheshire, but this location is not proper for a building of that scale. We do need housing, but 74 apartments and 148 parking spaces on this property is over the top and not in character with this location of Cheshire. I commend this commission on the tireless work put in to maintain the small town character and public safety in Cheshire. I greatly appreciate all of the work that you do. I would encourage this commission to deny this application for a zone text change. I also would encourage the developer to scale down this project to fit with the character of West Cheshire. We live in this community and want to be proud what is built in our neighborhood. This proposed development will only create animosity and chaos, which is not healthy for the growth of our community. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ken Wargo. I live at 751A West Main Street in the Hidden Pond condominiums. I live in a back unit. I've lived there for over 25 years. I live in a back unit which is directly abutting woods and forest that is adjacent to the Inland Wetlands Act that is beyond our inland wetlands area, which is beyond our property. It's my understanding that the presenter said that there's approximately 10.75 acres, and 4 of those are inland wetlands acres. So really 6.75 of those acres are for development. And the transportation engineer, I'm quoting him, he says, "We want to do no harm." I believe that if this is approved, it will cause irreparable harm to this area, to this community, to this town, for some of the following reasons. They never mentioned any sidewalks being implemented on Mountain Road. Mountain Road is very narrow. In that area, there are no sidewalks. That's a problem. They also didn't mention about ADA requirements for Americans with Disabilities Act. How many handicapped units are there going to be available? They didn't mention visitor parking, handicap parking. It's 3 stories. Are there going to be elevators to get up to the 3rd floor for someone in a wheelchair who has mobility impairment?
I'm just going to interrupt you. That would come with it when they bring their site plan in, if they got approved of this text change, zone change that they are trying to ask for.
Okay, but I didn't hear anything. I think that that's very important that they conform to our laws in that regard. And the congestion, et cetera. But environmentally, I believe it will be a disaster and very detrimental to our town, and therefore I respectfully ask that you reject their bid. I think it's overkill, it's unreasonable, and it's economically, they want to get obviously as much profit margin from the development. I think it needs to be scaled down or eliminated because it will not be in our best interest. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Don Champy. My wife, Ellen, could not be here this evening. I know she tried to rally a lot of folks here. I want to first thank the board. It's 9:15 at night. I know you guys all have jobs. You got jobs to go to tomorrow. My address is 55 Nob Hill Road. I've lived there for 30 years. I also own a business in town called Champy Tax and Financial Services. We have interest in 2 commercial properties, one on 2278 Waterbury Road and one on 2298 Waterbury Road. So I'm very integral, not only living here, but supporting the town and supporting it with employees. I would ask you guys to, certainly like everyone else, oppose this zone change. We are not opposed to low-income housing. Obviously, you guys have done a fantastic job. And at late in the game, you're going to kind of hear some repetition here, but I think it's important. I'm opposed to it for 3 very important reasons. We obviously heard a lot about the Gateway and how beautiful it's going to be, and we didn't expect anything else. If you're going to pay rents between $1,800 and $4,500 a month, it better be beautiful. You better have those amenities. I mean, we're talking New York City rates, Boston rates, and I understand housing is going up. We all know that. You guys are all very educated. Economy is going up. We've got inflation numbers that we haven't seen before. So we all know that, right? So I'm going to move through that. But the first thing I would ask you guys is that changing the zone to residential in that location is essentially, I think, a violation of the Plan of Conservation and Development, PCD. I may be wrong on that. Not that PCD is set in stone and can't evolve, but the corner of Mountain Road and West Main should remain a commercial zone. The town and elected officials need to be mindful of the fact that more and more of the tax burden is falling on taxpayers and homeowners. The latest reevaluation accelerated this imbalance as most types of single-family home values increase at a much higher rate than the commercial property. We need commercial space to accommodate for the I can't get an accurate number from the town if it's 600 units, 1,000 units that are being developed right now, but it's some massive number. And we obviously need commercial property to be able to support that. So I would carefully ask you guys to consider.
Sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mike, can you give him that number? Over 700.
So it's over 700 that have been approved and being built right now?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. Thank you. So I would ask the planning and zoning to be carefully consider the imbalance and consider the value of this commercial property, and seriously consider denying the zone change. Secondly, the health and safety, right? Everybody's brought that up, and we talked about the access points being extremely challenging. Very quickly, the issue is 74 multifamily units. If I do the math, I come up with 142 cars, roughly, without extended families. I live on Nob Hill Road. I could see 8 neighbors. Every day, 16 cars from the 8 neighbors go up and down multiple times. Kathy goes to church. My wife goes to work out. So what they're telling us is that we're only going to have 29 of the 142 cars are going to leave in the morning, and they're only going to leave one time. My eight neighbors, they go walking, they go to the gym. Who goes to the trail, who goes to 7 o'clock mass at St. Bridget's, and they come back. So you guys know all that, right? But you guys have to understand that component. We talked about the 30 crashes reported in the area, and I would love to see statistics in the last 5-year period, year by year, because I think, Commissioner Strollo brought up that it seems to be more and more. I mean, we live in Cheshire, we hear the sirens, right? We sit in our backyard, we hear the sirens all night long. And I would love to see what the trend is of those numbers over the 5 years. The study also cites peak times from 7 to 9 and 4 to 6, but if you look deeply at the traffic study and safety concerns, it's all day long. There is major issues at 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock, when the schools are getting out. And if you look at the numbers, they don't drastically go down like other peak areas in that intersection. So we talk about 7 to 9 and 4 to 6, but it's an all-day process there with the number of cars that are going by. Lastly, I'm concerned about the additional pressure in making this zone change and going to residential would put on the town resources. I spoke to Trinity Ambulance. They recently just had to hire another ambulance. They're already telling me they're busy. I've talked to the police department. I'm trying to get statistics from them in terms of where our numbers are. And again, we see that, right? And you guys see that, and you know that. So that's a major concern that I have. I would also ask the P&Z, as the other person said, to put a moratorium to see how the impact of these 700 units develop. Because in the infrastructure to support it, normally a town could handle this over a period of time, not in such a short period of time, and not with the pressure that I know you guys are handcuffed with this 830G has put on a lot of these projects. And I would love to see and make a motion to put a 6 to 9 month moratorium on any development until we understand those 700 units, how they're impacting our health and safety. Again, whether it's fire, whether it's police.
Supervisor, to interrupt you quickly, we are working on that, and we've already talked about this. We understand exactly what you're talking about. It's just something about there has to be closings, there's numbers or something before you can ask for the moratorium. We've been down this road.
So the moratorium for 830G, the way it works is your community has to add 2% to the total, which we have. As this commission's aware, the key is that those developments which have deed-restricted units, a certificate of occupancies need to be issued. At this point, only one of those developments is fully, certificate of occupancies have been issued. That's Hazel Drive. East Mitchell they've received a certificate of occupancies for one of the buildings, so that should be coming along soon. We had a pre-construction meeting the past week. The application Metro Realty, which all what number was it? 74 apartments that were approved as part of the assisted living or assisted housing development, that will start construction this summer. So, going by the same, that's the one that's across from Byron. They received state funding. So in total, you're looking at 137 out of the 700 plus apartment residential units that are considered deed restricted affordable. When certificate of occupancies are issued for all those 137, we can apply for a moratorium through the Department of Housing, which basically says from an 830G perspective, we could say, no, sorry, for 4 years, we're gonna kind of find our own solution. The appeal process is kind of put on pause for applicants. And that 137 does not count Jack's Farm, because that was another project that was approved that did not receive state funding last year, which is that approval still valid. That's for 44, and of the 44 apartments that are there, 80% are deed restricted affordable, which would add into the 137 when and if that does get built. That was the Housing Authority's project. Just
to let you know, none of us are a fan of 830G.
I realize
it takes away
that.
almost all of our actions up here. So we are actively working on exactly what you're talking about.
But I would ask everybody, and I'm willing as a taxpayer to fight it. Because I think we need to do it, and I fight the zone change, fight whatever's going to come down the line. We've had enough. Obviously, you can see the people that are here tonight. It's becoming a safety issue, and driving through town, and even everybody's doing cut-throughs now, right? So that's the other part of the safety issue, right? So everybody's going on these side streets at 50, 60 miles an hour, and you see the police all over the place. So thank you guys very much.
That was
I
part of
appreciate
the
it.
developer's idea to fix it, was to do cut-throughs.
You wanted cut-throughs, and Nob Hill is a cut-through. It's a raceway. So you
Mr.
guys could
Mr.
come to the
Chairman.
development and see it.
Yes,
They've left.
Mr. Bowman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, you say you have a business in town?
We do. Yes.
Okay, well, if we keep getting crowds like that, would you like to sponsor us? We're gonna put an ad on for you.
Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
How you doing? Mike Rapetsky, 855 Ives Row, another cut through. I have several concerns with this project, traffic being a primary one. People already use Ives Row as a cut through on both ends, the West Main end and the Mountain Road end. I've had traffic backed up in front of my house before trying to go out either end. It's an issue. We're encouraging the development of West Main Street for businesses. And if we want people to actually participate and patronize these businesses, they got to get to them. So I don't know how they're going to get to these businesses if there's traffic like that. We have the Hawk system on West Main Street. That encourages people crossing West Main Street. Now we're encouraging more cars to take a right out of this development and go up West Main Street towards pedestrians. I see that as a safety issue. And I guess my last question is, who's going to pay for this shoulder that they kept referencing that needs to be developed for cars to be able to go around on Mountain Road? I think they want the taxpayers to pay for that, and I don't know why we should have to subsidize their projects. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Frank Salvatore, 980 Prospect Road. I also have a business at 905 Waterbury Road, The Notch. You guys, pretty much everyone here probably knows it, I hope. Mr. Wolf brought up a statement tonight about West Cheshire, and I thought, you know what? My family's been here 104 years. I truly care about West Cheshire. West Cheshire is something, we used to have a community clubhouse where we all got together, and at one point, they must have thought planning and zoning had to have spot zoning for businesses to accommodate all of the farms and whatnot that came to town. And it doesn't make any sense to me when we have less than 25% of this town's population is residential. Everything is, commercial. Everything is residential. Why are we? There's no sense to take away commercial zoning. Commercial zoning should be staying. I own commercial businesses. That means someday somebody will want to put G3 houses and throw me off my property? We need to keep the commercial property that we have. We don't need to have more houses. Houses, we have way more than our share. It's no more a quiet little bedroom town. Like everybody here knows, we can't move out of our town any longer. So I hope you guys take into consideration a zone change here is a detriment to the whole community. That's all I'm going to say.
Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? No? Okay. So this hearing is going to be held open, I don't know when the next date is. Did you want to add anything to tonight's
No, Mr.
meeting?
Chairman, if the commission has, for the record, Andre Gomes, counsel for the applicant, if the commission has no other questions, I think I've taken copious notes. I think we'll just be responding to things in writing in advance of the next hearing, excuse me.
And if anyone doesn't have anything tonight to mention to her, maybe you can get it to Mike, and then Mike can relay the message to Ms. Gomes.
So the next meeting, just so for the public's purpose, is June 10th.
June 10th?
Here,
Okay.
7 p.m.
Okay. Mr. Selma had a question for staff.
Mike, when we get to next meeting, what percentage of vacant commercial land is available? How much commercial space we have and how much of it is vacant? I'd be curious to know that. I looked at the zoning map and I started reading through all the colors and then I realized there was pretty much very little to none. But I'm curious if you have that info available.
And that's C3, right?
C3, C2, any commercial.
C3 is very rare. That's like
Real
ends
rare.
to-
Yeah,
ends to-
and then also the C3. I could look it up in the regular, but how it differentiates from C2 or industrial or what other the specialties that are available for it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So if there's anything else, then we will we'll contact through Mike to get to you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I'll entertain a motion to close public hearing. Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. I will ask the public to, if you guys could take your conversations out and down the hall. I'm not trying to throw you out, but we do have another meeting that we have to conduct. I think. Right? I have no agenda for the other meeting.
You have agenda.
What's that?
Yeah, we have a regular meeting.
We got a few minutes and all.
Okay. I had no agenda for the next meeting, but with that, okay. So I'd like to call to order the planning and zoning regular meeting. I'm going to give you a couple minutes. The regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for Wednesday, May 29th, 2024. Can I get a motion to accept the public hearing and regular meeting from 5/13/2024? Motion by Mr. Mercado, second by Mr. Natale. Any corrections of anything in the minutes? Okay, I wasn't here either, but I did watch it, so I think I'm okay for voting on it, so. Okay, nothing else. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Mr. Strolos, vote carries 801. Any communications to come before us tonight?
No.
Okay. Can I get through the agenda first? Obviously, we left that one open. Special permit of John Torello. What's he coming back in for?
He is coming in for the barn, for the
barn?
events.
Okay.
That he changed the regulations for, finally.
Is a site plan that he's coming in?
Nope.
A special permit, because, okay.
Which, so the question of the commission is, I mean, we can advertise it for the next meeting or put it on for the second meeting in June.
We have nothing else?
That's the only
Pending?
two.
Put
that's
it on
the
for
only
the
two.
second meeting of June, because who knows, he's not gonna wanna sit through this either.
I'll speak to
So,
John about
yeah.
that.
Unless it screws up something, but this is going first, and tell him that it'll be, he's gonna be late at night, so.
Yep.
I'd rather not. All the people that come in here, I'm not gonna listen to, you
Yeah.
know, so tell him he's second on the 10th, or all alone on the next one in June.
I'll speak to John tomorrow.
Okay. Mr. Strollo. It was new business. Your communications, you said. I'm giving you the floor.
I had talked to.
Turn your mic on, please.
I had talked to Mr. Glidden about before, but hearing everybody tonight, I think we have the right motivation to try and get in a lawsuit to sue the state with the other people that have jails in their towns. I think right now we have enough people here in this community that are sick of the building. And I really, like I told him, I think that with, I think Old Lime, was it Old Lime?
Lime, New Lime, East Lime.
I said that I think that we have a good case. I know that there's enough other towns that have jails in their community.
All to be
that
considered.
That limit what they could do for property, and they should be an exemption at least to get it below 10% for the.
Or have the jail count as it.
That's what it used to, and that's when we never got bothered. Then it changed.
The jail does not count as affordable housing?
No, and that's what I'm saying. If you could, even if we got 3%, 4%, anything, we could stop what's going on. It'd be over.
That doesn't sound like a lawsuit, that sounds like a legislation.
Well, no,
Legislation.
it would be with all the other communities that are in the same position. I mean, how many, there's what, 12 towns?
Yeah, there's.
Because Old Lime's really screwed. I mean, they're down on the shoreline. I mean, think about down there. They have to put 10% in. What are going to be
And
floating
they've-
boats in swamps?
They have a lot of, there's areas that are undeveloped, but also they've actually experienced two very significant affordable housing applications, one of which went to federal court and they lost.
That's what I'm
So,
saying. They would be on board. I mean, I really think that with the community like this, you know, I think that we have the community behind us. If we get involved in, I think that that's the way to roll. Right now, we're in a position. You know, when I first talked about it, we didn't have this, you know, nobody really cared. But now people are really realizing 830G, and they're like, it makes people cringe. So it's like, I think it's a time for us to react and be involved in it. I mean, I really.
Well, the problem with 830G is the state law, and towns are part of the states. We can't sue the state for something like that.
Well,
we
why-
have to do it legislatively.
Okay, so why wouldn't we be able to get an exemption, the towns getting together to ask for an exemption just for specifically.
But that's what I asked Liz Linehan tonight.
We need to get our state.
So, but I'm just saying is if you could get Liz involved and get the other representatives involved, I think that we have traction right now.
Sean, one of the main problems with 830G is it doesn't take into consideration the housing has to be deed restricted. We probably have 10% of affordable housing in Cheshire. It's not deed restricted. We are going to start to run into another problem soon, and that is our first affordable housing project, which was Moss Farms Village, is probably within 4 years of coming off. So we're gonna lose.
Yeah, but there's not many how many units are really in Moss Farms Village? 20?
That's still a big loss when you're talking these numbers.
Still 20, it's coming.
Well, he said if we get the jail, I mean, I'm telling you that, I think that's.
Sean, what's gonna start to happen is we're far enough along now, as we try to add, we're gonna be losing two on the other end. We can never get to 10%.
That's what I'm saying. Why should we have to get to 10%? That's what I'm trying to.
Because it's a state law.
I agree
That's
with
what
you.
I'm asking for an exemption. Why can't we ask for exemption?
So maybe it's something to engage the legislators of representing this district, both from the House and the Senate, to say, listen, we're a community of which, for example, we're adding 2% to our total. It's not like we're fighting it. We're adding.
We're
we've
being
been
proactive,
progressively
but it's enough.
adding.
It's too much.
And we can't reach that 10%, and therefore, one of the unique characteristics is that we have a state-run correctional facility. There's only a few other communities in the state that are in the same boat, and of those communities, I without knowing their numbers or what's going on in their towns, I beg to say that we may be the leaders in how many affordable housing units
I would
that
agree.
we've added in the past 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've been
very aggressive,
proactive doing it. But
well, I mean, I shouldn't
enough
say
is
we've
enough.
been.
But
It's
I'm
that would
sa-
take an act of the legislature to.
But I think Liz could be the person right now because she could be able to get, we have motivation right now.
Well, we also have demographics. Connecticut is an overwhelmingly suburban state, and these affect suburban communities. So we've got the numbers in the legislature.
So that being said, what is Woodbridge? How are they not even affected by this? What are they doing? I mean, do they have like a magic wand in Woodbridge or something?
They're actually subject to a federal lawsuit right now over a denial of an 830G appeal, which they probably will lose, and it'll be interesting the implications that will probably occur from that case statewide. Yeah, it's too long of a
They've done
discussion.
nothing. Right? They've done nothing.
Yeah, and without getting too deep into the weeds, the details specific about that application, they had a group that applied for an affordable housing project in town, which was denied due to many reasons, and that group has elected to appeal the decision both at the state and federal court, and that's pending as we speak, and it may have some very sweeping impacts to.
If that goes through.
Oh, it's good. Well, it's in the court system.
Is there any other community in the state of Connecticut that is in the same boat as Woodbridge, where they denied everything? Or is it just Woodbridge?
No. Well, a lot of communities have denied, but the problem is honestly the court system. You can deny 830G applications, 9 out of 10 are overturned. I'll give you the example being my experience when I was in Simsbury. The Planning Commission denied, it was a 19-lot subdivision on 4.5 acres. It was denied due to traffic concerns.
Yep.
The proposed intersection did not meet our town roadway standards and did not have sufficient sight lines. So you
Okay.
couldn't see the traffic coming, but the traffic can see you. And that's the reason why the courts overturned the decision. They said, well, the traffic coming down the road can see you pulling out into the road, so therefore they have sufficient stopping distance. It's not an unsafe hazard. This is ordered by the court to be approved. And 9 out of 10 830G appeals throughout the state, that's how the ending result usually is once it goes to court.
And this is probably one of the best law firms in the state of Connecticut.
I don't think we should go too
Okay,
deep in that.
All right.
Can I ask,
When was 830G enacted? How long is that?
1989.
Wow.
Maybe we should look and see what Liz was trying to do to change 8-30G.
I can send you some stuff.
Can you let us know what her changes or her attempted changes were?
Yeah.
See if it actually benefits.
And she's been talking to you like she would be.
Casey wants to speak to him.
I just want, do you think we will vote on this at the next meeting, or will it go to a third?
Third or fourth.
It depends on
I
what
would
the
think
public,
third or
if they,
fourth.
something new comes in.
I would say third or fourth.
It's the discretion of the,
Because
well,
I'm on vacation
the
away that week, and if I had to come down and vote, I would, but I don't really want to drive back.
honestly, it's the discretion of the commission on how, obviously, you have an open public hearing. By state statute, you have 35 days to close the hearing, which could be extended by additional up to 65 days if the applicant were to agree.
Unless something new comes in, we're closing the public hearing. I mean, next
I
week,
wouldn't
whether
go-
we vote, we don't have to vote that night.
Well, you got the 10th and the 24th.
Yeah, so it's not that far off. Yeah.
Just curious.
I just can't see anything new coming in. I think it's more traffic, safety, and
No.
that's it. So,
Thank you.
We asked
Thank
Strife
you.
to be.
Mr. Natale has the
Police
floor.
Department for the next one? Again.
Good. I have one more piece of business. So this is kind of timely, based on some of the things we've heard tonight, but I'm going to make a motion. So I'll make a motion to have the staff file a text amendment to have infill residential regulations removed from the zoning regs.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Mr. Bowman. Discussion on the motion.
We're losing our commercial base.
Yes.
We have, it's limited, and it's the buildings that are getting up, we've approved some of them. I've voted against a couple of them, and we're just losing the land, and I think it's a smart move.
I've been asking for this for at least 3 or 4 months, so I'm glad that we're doing something, because
Sorry.
we've had the end of that.
Can you give me a brief synopsis of how it would go from here if this is voted?
Can we do that?
Yes, well, you're removing the infill regs from your own regulations, so yes. So what'll happen is tomorrow, then I'll fill out the application with the text, file it, and then we could schedule it for a public hearing for June 24th. It'll get enough time for all the notifications and filing requirements under state law.
Can you give me a 30-second explanation of what that would do?
So basically, would say projects within pursuant to the infill regulations, which are the development of residential projects in R20A zoning districts that you want to do multifamily housing. The hamlet up the road, the project that's next to the high school that's under construction right now. Those are 2 projects that were approved pursuant to that regulation. And it only applies to the R20A zoning districts. However, the R20A zoning district is your transition zone. You allow for some commercial uses there, such as personal services, banks, et cetera, but you also have that balance where it's usually abutting directly to a single-family zoning district.
I think Attorney Fazone had represented a couple of applications like that, and he had mentioned that process. So this is using R20, R20A as a mixed use.
R20A.
We had talked about that and trying to come up with better regs, but this is the best, just to mix it.
This was something that was discussed many years ago, and it was discussed because we didn't have apartments in Cheshire. And now we have an abundance of apartments, but what people don't understand is there were no apartments built of any significance after 1965. So we've got 700 apartments approved here now in a 1 or 2 or 3 year period, but it's really been a 50-year period since there's been any apartments built. So if you take that and average it, you're really only doing 10 apartments a year, 15 apartments a year. There has to be a balance. And so the apartments that we're building now, we didn't have when they put the infill district in. And the infill was, actually it was Anthony Fazone's idea because he wanted to live within walking distance of where he worked and the town hall and all the rest of it. So it was his idea. He brought it forward in working with Bill, Volker, and So it came forth, but it's, you know what, people have had it in this town with these apartments. If we start letting these, I think, significantly important architectural style homes that are maybe not in the historic district, but have some significance within our town, if we start seeing 10 and 15 apartments in back of all these homes, you talk about ruining the look of Cheshire, that's gonna do it. This infill thing has to end now, in my opinion.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion?
Well, where does that go? I mean, part of the reason we did this is to add variety and on parcels of land that we can't, that would be high density in areas of town where people could walk, where they could do something a little differently. We give that up.
Well, you give
Yeah,
it
but we
up,
got a lot
we're
already.
also coming in, as soon as Andrew Martelli can get it presented to us, and something that this, proposal for Mountain and West Main Street is going to affect is we're about to look at 1,600 feet of property from Ives Row to Warren Street for a redevelopment type situation where right now we have residential, industrial, and commercial in that area. And we're going to put in some sort of West Main Street design district. And I think that's gonna alleviate the problem that you're thinking about, the walkability. It's gonna have a residential component to it. It's gonna have a more of a commercial component to it, and no industrial. The lumber yards in the old days were in an industrial zone. Unnecessary. We had Cheshire Grain and Coal or Country Lumber. In back of that was a business by the name of Cheshire Casting. So it was, and you had ball and socket, so there was industrial in that area. It's all gone now.
Yeah, there was
So,
a house there.
Yeah, we have the ability to make something really nice there, really walkable with the trail, really nice. So,
How does it
John,
feel-
I don't think we're gonna lose anything. in the-
How does an infield having that possibility hurt that? I just don't understand.
Well, the infill, just my opinion, is going to affect the colonial, and not the Cheshire, listen, when I was born in Cheshire, there's 5,000 people here. Let's cut the baloney. It's not a farm town anymore. It's not, the agrarian community is gone. Let's stop. Sorry, EJ.
Thanks.
Sorry.
I'm packing my bags.
Yeah, but, yeah, get out. No, but you still want that feel. And I've got to be honest with you, I don't think that John Mylone's project, the infill project down by the high school, I wish we had a little more say in what color it was, because it's sticking out like a sore thumb with that blue.
Lego, man. You can't do that.
Woody, just, you can.
We can get into that. We can get into that with design standards. We can get into design standards that's totally different, which we are going to take on the design standards very soon when we get
Anyway,
rolling
John,
again.
to try to answer your question, yeah, they built that in back of that nice colonial that's down there, probably Connecticut River Colonial's basically what it was called. You've got an Italianate house right now.
A what?
Called Italianate. Okay, it's a design of a home. It's on Main Street, on the corner of Main Street and Highland Avenue, across from Cheshire Academy.
Where the mobile station was, you mean that?
That's it's just a prime example of they could put probably 20 or 30 units in there. What the heck is that gonna look like? No,
All right, well, this motion is just to start this in the process, not
John
that
asked a question.
yes, I know, but we can do all that in our public hearing, in our, when we vote on it to realtors, if
Yeah,
we want to stop it, so.
And I did
This is
an-
just to approve the step going forward.
Right. And I
Get
did
it
an
started.
analysis on the R20A zoning district to kind of show the impact of that regulation. So I'll put that in with the application
Okay.
so that the commission has that. Because when you really look at it, it's kind of eye-opening where that,
Yeah.
how that regulation impacts what Matt said, the center.
Okay. So all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Okay, anyone abstaining? Motion carries 8-1. Anything else to come before the commission tonight?
Zoning enforcement.
No, why, no, he has a
make
right
us
to
stay.
say no,
It
absolutely.
won't make
We'll have a report for you at the next meeting. That's what the town attorney right now. We can talk about that later. We'll be going to court.
All right, anything else?
I actually agree with the.
A motion to adjourn, seconded. All those in favor? Aye.